Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the City Commission Conference Meeting, the 6th day of December 2022. I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon, and I want to welcome again our newly elected and sworn-in commissioners. We now have a complete commission, and we're able to now conduct business because we will have a quorum. So, turning to our conference meeting agenda, we start out with communications to the City Commission. And as you look to the communications, we have one from the Public Art and Placement Advisory Board. A motion was made by the board and voted unanimously to accept their two particular artworks that were offered to the city to place in on the Tunnel Top Park area. For those of you who aren't aware of what that's about, I'll give a little background on that. There was an individual named Mr. Laird who passed away and left the city was going to donate $5 million to the city to buy land and have a park named after himself. In speaking with his trustee, the $5 million really wouldn't go very far considering land prices today and the amount of real estate you'd be able to acquire with $5 million. I was able to convince the trustee that instead of purchasing land, could we ask this trust to instead purchase artwork that we could place. And in this particular case, the commission had discussed with the trustee the idea of placing them at the Tunnel Top Park area. So this is just in furtherance of two pieces of art that are being recommended by the committee that the trust is going to pay for and install, and this will be part of an ongoing process of beautifying the Tunnel Top Park. Does anyone have any questions with regard to that? Okay. Exhibit 2, this is a communication from the Historic Preservation Board. I guess they want us to do a resolution recognizing and honoring David Parker for his years of service to the city. We didn't really do a resolution. We did recognize him at a meeting, though, and we had a moment of silence for him. Commissioner Glassman, do you recall if we had previously been asked to do a resolution?
I don't think we were asked to do a resolution, but you're correct. We did do a moment of silence when we did find out that Dave passed away.
Right. So this is a request by the Historic Preservation Board to do a resolution. I can certainly do an expression of sympathy from the mayor's office if that makes the most sense in this case. So we'll probably just do that. Is that right? Okay. And finally, from the Planning and Zoning Board, I guess there was an issue that not all the members of the board are able to sit on the dais. Mr. City Manager, can we build out the dais? I don't know. What are we supposed to do?
So I believe this comment, good afternoon, commissioners and mayor. I believe this request was probably made before when partitions were on the dais. I believe now we have free roaming capabilities.
So can we put 9 people up here?
If that is your desire.
Well, if that's their desire.
For their desire, yes.
They did once all sit here, and I think they've met already since the petitions came down. I'm not sure, but they have about 5 up here, and then they have 4
well, that was
sitting
the problem.
down where our charter
that
office
was the
is.
problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, they could also meet in the conference room, can they not?
Right. What we could do is if you all like, we could touch base with them and see what it is that their goal is, and perhaps they are requesting that so that they can have the microphones set up for their configuration.
Okay.
And we can accommodate that.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions or comments on the communications? All right, there being none. Moving on to old business, new business, we have an update on Prospect Lake Water Treatment Plant project. I have a couple of people who signed up to speak. Mr. Dodd, do you have a report to give us?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could introduce, so I could provide some background for everyone, if I may. So the commission authorized staff to negotiate a contract over the past month. Staff has been working with the city attorney's office, with operations, with public works, And we have narrowed down certain items that are required to finalize a comprehensive agreement. So right now, staff is prepared to share that update. It's not the final, but it's progress. And it's also an opportunity to receive feedback from the commission as to how the contracts are going, and also just share any, be able to answer any questions for the community as well.
All right, so originally when the commission approved the unsolicited proposal, it came in at a guaranteed maximum price, did it not, Greg?
It did.
Okay, and that guaranteed maximum price has now changed,
Correct.
and I believe Mr. Dodd's going to talk about that.
Yes.
But I just want the new commissioners to be aware of the process that's been going on and the significant difference that we now have been informed between the so-called guaranteed maximum price and now what they're offering to build a plant for us at. All right,
Correct.
Mr. Dodd. Thank you very much, Mayor. Is your microphone on?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Mayor and Commissioner, thank you very much for having me here. I'm joined by a number of people who will help during the presentation, both from the city staff, our owner representative Hazen and Sawyer, and representatives from the IDE Ridgewood team. So we'll be able to answer questions from a number of different ways to hopefully give you a better understanding of where we are and the path forward. So before we get into the presentation about where we're going, we'd like to quickly recap how we got to this point. And as many of you know, we have 2 water treatment plants in the city, and the one that we're talking about replacing is the 5-ash water treatment plant. Constructed in 1954, it's ready for retirement, receiving Social Security at 70-something years old, and has a number of issues. So as we first looked at the condition of the plant, there's really 2 main reasons why we feel that it needs to be replaced. The first one is a major issue in the city has been color of the water coming out of the plant. It has yellow because of the tannins that are in the water and the inability of 5-ash to remove the color, which has caused numerous complaints over the years. The second, and that's really, it's a secondary factor when you're looking at water quality. It is safe water to drink, fully meets all of the EPA requirements, but it is a concern. The second condition, the more important one, is the plant itself has more than $200 million worth of work that needs to be done in order to keep it operational. It has a lot of significant issues. It is not hurricane category 5 capable, which means if we have a major hurricane or something happens, the plant could fail and we would be unable to deliver water to our residents. And that's a really big concern when you're looking at the future of the city. So in 2017, we completed the Comprehensive Utility Strategic Master Plan, the REACH report, which identified the need to look at possibly replacing it. And we conducted the Corolla report, which was finalized in 2019, that was really to look at, do we need to replace the plant? If so, how big of a plant, what type of technology should we use, and where's a place to construct it? It was not a design, but more to look at what options should the city move forward on. And it did recommend a combination of nanofiltration and ion exchange, 70-30 split, and to construct it out at the Prospect Lake well field. In late 2020, we received the first unsolicited proposal, and then through 2021, received 3 additional ones, and we followed the P3 process that culminated in March of 2022 with the selection of IDE Ridgewood as the one that for us to continue negotiations. Since that time, we have been conducting negotiations on a weekly basis, multiple meetings every week, trying to put together at first an interim agreement and now a comprehensive agreement in order to solidify a deal with them. And we are still working on that at this time. So at this time, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Michael Albright from IDE Ridgewood, who will talk a little bit about the proposal itself and where we are at this point.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate your time, and apology, Commissioner, I'm staring at you through a screen, so I apologize for that. As Alan said, my name is Michael Albrecht. I'm a managing partner at Ridgewood Infrastructure. And I want to talk a little bit about our team, as Alan shared. And when we formed this team, it was really around core competencies in order to deliver a project through construction, as well as, of course, deliver the project through operations in the entire period of that plant. And how we thought about that was bringing the best core competencies together from the best out there. Thinking about that from a construction perspective, we immediately turned to Kiewit Construction. Kiewit is the #1 water treatment EPC in the United States. They have a wealth of experience and fantastic track record around that to deliver this particular plant. And importantly, Kiewit's been involved for over 2 years. So when we first began initial discussions with the city, they've been involved working with the city, the team, and fully integrated with us. Secondly, as you think about that next stage is operations. And ID Technologies is a world-class global leader in water treatment. As one example to that, the treatment technology that is being utilized potentially at Prospect Lake, the nanofiltration, as Alan noted, is the same type of treatment that is used at many other facilities that they operate. And as, again, one example, in the Carlsbad water treatment plant, which is the second largest public-private partnership in water in U.S. history. So their knowledge base, their background, their commitment is extremely important across the board to all stakeholders involved. And then lastly, Ridgewood Infrastructure, we're an investment firm that invests primarily in water infrastructure. It's what we do. It's at our core competency. And again, just as one example around that, we provide the city of San Antonio in Texas water through a public-private partnership, which is actually the largest P3 in U.S. history. And we've been working with them for, gosh, nearly 6 years, may even be nearly a decade now, in a thoughtful, collaborative way. And again, it's bringing together all of these stakeholders to deliver this plant, not just through construction and operations, through construction and COD, commercial operations, but then through the ongoing operations and maintenance of the facility with world-class team. With that, Mark Janae from Ridgewood, our operating partner, is going to talk a bit more about the actual proposed water treatment plant.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. Pleasure to be here this afternoon. I wanted to maybe first take a moment, kind of build off what Michael was saying, and make sure that we acknowledge that we have our partners both with Kiewit. The CEO of IDE is with us today, and I also want to point out that in advancing the Carollo report to bring the city the design of this plant, it wasn't done just, this truly has been a partnership. We would not be here today if we didn't have the work that Alan and his team have put in from Public Works, and certainly their technical advisor, who is also here today at Hazen and Sawyer. This really has been a collaborative effort to not only solidify around the design of this plant, the operation, but all the pieces that go into it. So specific to the plant itself, again, as Michael and Alan said, this started off as a recommendation from the Carollo report to use that 70% nanofiltration, 30% ion exchange, and to deliver a 50 million gallon per day plant. In addition to making the refinements to ensure that we can meet the city's produced water quality requirements, but also being able to ensure that we're able to treat for all the feedstock water coming from the existing Prospect Lake well field. We've made further refinements, again, in collaboration with Hazen and with the city. Beyond just the treatment and its capacity itself, some of the other aspects of the plant I think we wanted to point out is that we're going to be building a new administrative building for the staff. Again, it will be city staff that will be operating this plant day to day. There'll be a new laboratory, and in addition to that, I think we're all very sensitive these days to not only physical security, but certainly cybersecurity. And certainly this, the state-of-the-art technology for both of those will be implemented in this plant. Our intent is to deliver this plant from the date that we receive a notice to proceed from the city within 42 months. And again, we have fixed our price on that going forward.
All right, let's stop right there.
Sure.
Fixed our price. First of all, I appreciate both of you gentlemen coming here to talk about your capabilities and your experience and all that. We've heard it before, but when I say we, it's just Commissioner Glassman and myself. So with the new commissioners, it's great that you've repeated your presentation to talk about why the commission at that time decided to go with your companies. However, the guaranteed maximum price is no longer a guaranteed maximum price, and the $485 million has now gone up considerably. And from my understanding, you're saying, well, we didn't add certain enabling works because it wasn't part of the original proposal. But the reality is, you're going from 485 million to almost 600 million, and that's not acceptable. And why would the city want to accept that? Tell us.
So there's, I think, a few pieces there to sort of unpack, Mayor and Commission. I think the first piece of that is, our direction, and of course, this is going back to Greg's predecessor. Chris, we had discussions with Chris Lagerbloom, and one of the things that we all agreed on is that our proposal was only going to focus on the treatment plant itself. The Corolla report fully acknowledged that there was what we're now calling these enabling works that would have to be included. But the reason we did not include that is there was a decision and a concern over that it would give this appearance of we're trying to build out an entire new system for the city. And we didn't want this to appear that we were trying to sort of privatize everything for the city. So our proposal only focused on building the treatment plant itself.
So Alan, can you step up to the microphone? Was that the understanding of all the people who submitted bids, that it was only to do one aspect of the project and not the other?
I can't speak about the other three proposals. I wasn't part of the review on them or had any discussions with them. One proposal did discuss the entire system, but as we brought the recommendations to you in March, I think we were only looking at within the fence line, the plant itself, and we did not do any analysis on what's now being referred to as enabling works.
So we anticipated each proposal to be amended with enabling works aspects to it with an additional price tag?
Well, the Ernst & Young evaluations and the costing only evaluated the plant itself. It did assume in the pricing models that we would do about $100 million worth of enabling works in order to integrate it into our water system. At that time, it was not very well defined exactly what those enabling works would be, but we did know that there would be a requirement for it, and we did include $100 million for that purpose.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Okay. So focusing then on the treatment plant, and as you appropriately stated, Mayor, our initial proposal had a fixed price that has certainly gone up with the current number at 485. Our original proposal included a schedule that indicated a notice to proceed, that we would go through a process. Again, our proposal was delivered in December of 2020. And we laid out a proposal that we thought was reasonable, of getting to a notice to proceed by July of 2021. I think it's figure 2.2 in the proposal. We certainly recognize that as we went through and worked with the city and the P3 process, it required like the 90-day solicitation. And then when the city did receive three other proposals, there needed to be the appropriate time for Ernst & Young and Hazen & Sawyer, your financial and technical advisors, to review those. So that brought us to the first quarter of this year. And at that point in time, we were still committed to that number. But as we moved into the second and third quarter of this year, in particular the second, some of the the global factors began to impact our partner Kiewit's ability and many of the vendors that they go out and receive solicitations from, many of which had committed to holding a price for a number of months, but because of things like the COVID in China, the war in Ukraine, the sanctions on Russia, the pandemic, and 40-year historic high inflation, Kiewit had to go back and reprice those elements and get new estimates. And it was those elements that required us to then come back in, I believe it was August, we came back in and presented those updated numbers to the city and staff.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So that's actually all I had kind of on a discussion of the plant. I think the next slide then talks a bit more about the enabling works, and I'll turn it back over to Alan.
Mayor and Commissioners, so enabling works has been a huge part of our discussion over the past 6 months. And these are things that are necessary in order to integrate it into the water treatment and delivery system. So we had estimated before we started doing the work with them about $100 million. As we were opening up our cabinet, showing them exactly the condition of the wells and trying to figure out how it would integrate, we identified a number of requirements. Upgrading the service pumps at 5 Ash as the distribution center, a new pipeline to connect the Prospect Lake site to 5 Ash, modification to the well field, bringing in electrical power, wastewater and water connections, and then communications. Those were all things that we expected would happen. But also, we realized that based on the Corolla report, they did not have enough information about the actual character, the conditions of the water that was coming out of the wells, and the city standards for product water that would be delivered. So as we were going through the analysis, we also identified a few additional things that would have to happen, primarily with a pre-treatment facility. This would be to remove sand and other materials out of the water, boost the pressure so that it could go into the plant. And so that was one of the things that we came out through our analysis working with them. In addition, from a DEP requirement, we identified some corrosion control treatments and a second injection well that will be required by Florida Department of Environmental Protection. That also increased the cost in order for this plant to operate within our systems. So in September, we came to you and we said with these additional costs, we were looking at around $150 million of enabling works. As we have been further negotiating, we have asked for a cap, particularly on the pre-treatment parts, which they have provided, but adds on an additional $23 million, in addition to $8 million for some modifications to the plant to accommodate the need for different chemical consumption and uses. So that raises the total cost of the enabling works for this to fit into our system up to around $181 million. And we are continuing to work to finalize exactly what the requirements for those would be. These are all items that the city would either pay for and construct ourselves, or on the bottom items, the project company would be constructing those as part of those projects, and we would pay for the actual cost of those as they're built. So in addition to the construction of it, we're looking at a 42-month construction period, but then we would transition into a 30-year operations period. And that is a very significant part of this agreement. So as we're looking at how we would operate the plant, the city would continue to have control and own the plant, and IDE Ridgewood would be operating the plant and doing the repairs and maintenance of it. We would be providing the feedstock water, electricity, and the chemicals for operation of the plant. They would do all the maintenance repair. There would be an arrangement where 2 months in advance, we identify what our daily quantity requirements are. They would program that in, and then it would be produced, and we would monitor it for quality and quantity to make sure that they're delivering on what is agreed to 2 months in advance. If they do not achieve those requirements, there are penalties, deductions that would be made for either non-conforming water or if they don't produce the water that we had agreed to. And then as we're doing this, there's also in the contract a number of different relief events or procedures to adjust to conditions. If something happens, a hurricane hits beyond their control, how we would accommodate that, or if the regulatory environment changes and we need to modify the plant to accommodate new laws and rules. The plant would be operated by approximately 40 city employees. That would be their full-time place of employment, but they would still be city employees. And over the course of those 30 years, we would still retain all authority for hiring them, terminating them, discipline actions, promotions, and anything else following under our collective bargaining agreements. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Susan Grant, who will talk a little bit more about the financial aspects of the project.
You don't want to do that slide?
No.
No, okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioner Susan Grant, Assistant City Manager and Finance Director. So I'm going to have the fun job of telling you what all this costs and what it means for ratepayers. We had done a presentation several months ago, and the first 3 rows on this chart are exactly what you had seen before. The first row shows the initial proposal from December of 2020 with the $385 million capital expense. That's the CapEx. At that point, the average water bill will, at the end of a 10-year period, have increased 116%, or $66 for that water bill, which is $31 in 2022. That's assuming an average usage of 5,000 gallons. When that price did go up to $485 million, we started in the negotiations talking about ways to lessen the impact on the ratepayers, and that's when the city proposed that we would finance 75% of that CapEx through the city, taking advantage of our good credit rating and the lower cost of capital. That second row also incorporates the $150 million of enabling works, which is what we were looking at the time. At that point, we were looking at the end of a 10-year period, 139% rate increase, and an average water bill being 73%. One thing I do want to point out is that 139%, that delta isn't 100% related to the water plant. There were 3.6% annual increases already programmed in for regular inflation and the costs of running the plant. So that would have, at the end of that 10-year, totaled 37%. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that that whole 139 isn't related to the new construction. The third row, we tried to replicate, hey, if we did this on our own, how much would it cost? And obviously, the only way you know exactly how much something's going to cost is if you put it out to bid. But we just use that same $485 million, the $150 in enabling works, and said, hey, we're going to finance this whole thing ourselves. We do think, because of the procurement processes, that it would take longer, so that cost could go up. And the answer to that question was, yes, it costs less, but not materially less. At that point, we were saying, hey, in 10 years, the water bill goes up 133% versus that 139. And you know, it's a big capital expenditure, and it is going to have a significant impact on rates. That final row is new, and that just adjusts for the additional enabling works that may or may not be required. So that adds $31 million of enabling works, and at that point, you're looking at a rate increase in 10 years of 143%, or that water bill being $75. We assumed that it would be level debt service, which would result in the smallest amount of interest cost. And the interest that we used was 4.5%, which is, you know, we think pretty conservative. We just priced a GEO bond today, and it came in at 4.03. So we think the number that we used for putting together these assumptions is pretty good. One more slide, just, oops, wrong way. Just this, wanted everyone to know what was included in this. So what we sent to the rate model, and those are the folks at Stantec do the water rate modeling for us, but we kept the budget exactly the same, so no change in our 10-year projected budget line items. And what we added was the annual payment to the P3 provider, which increased 5% a year for the first 5 years and then 2.5% thereafter. We added the city cost of debt service, 75% on the 485, 100% on those enabling works, and then I adjusted that for the additional 31. Additional chemical costs were included in that as well. And then we would have to just have a new rate structure in place at the time we issued the debt, and that would be about 6 months after a comprehensive agreement. So mid-next year, we would have to have a new rate structure in place. And here you can see the first 10 years. You could see year -1, -3, -2, -1. That's the construction period. So we would issue the debt at the beginning of this, so you could see the expenses in year -3, -2, -1 is just the city's debt service. And then starting in 1 through 7 there, you can see that is the availability payment gets added in. So that's all I have as far as that goes. Happy to answer questions now or at the end.
Let's just, if you don't mind, if we just wait till the end of the presentation. Is there anything else that you want to add, Alan, to the presentation?
Mayor, the only thing, I have 2 slides very quickly. The first one is just a recap on how we think it will benefit the city, which is helping to reduce the color and produce the reliability of it. And this agreement does provide for risk transfer to the IDE Ridgewood team during construction and operations. But where we are right now and the path forward, I think is where we want to end on, is we still have not finalized the comprehensive agreement, the labor services agreement, or those documents to present them to you, and we're continuing to work on those. We have to also meet with the Teamsters, and we had 1 meeting already, because if our employees are going to be going this month, they need to be fully on board with the arrangements as well. We want to make sure that before we bring it to you, that we also share it with the public, everything about it, all of the agreements. And so we're planning on doing some town halls to increase awareness so everybody understands what it is, and we can make a decision as a city as to the best path forward. So I put on here that we are tentatively scheduled for December 20th. That's because we keep trying to set a date to keep working towards, so that doesn't go on forever. If it is ready on December 20th, it will come to you. If we have to keep negotiating and working on finalizing it and doing all these other requirements, we will have to take that time to make sure that it's right before we bring it to you for a decision.
Okay.
And that's where I would like to end.
Thank you. Members of the commission, Commissioner Herbst, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. So one of the things that I mentioned to the city manager is that I think we need to do 2 things. First being, I would like him to schedule a much more extensive workshop on this for the benefit of the 2 new commissioners. I've been involved with this for the last 2 years. I'm probably as knowledgeable about the process and how we got to where we are as anybody is. I was supportive of the IDE bid when this came up, based on the determination that the commission had made to move forward along the lines of putting in a new plant. I think we need to go back and revisit that. We have the Reese report, we've got the Carollo report, and I'll use this analogy. I've got one doctor telling me I need surgery, another one saying I can take a pill. What I think we need is a third opinion. I would like somebody that's independent of those 2 to take a look at these various engineering reports and give me a sense of comfort that the path that we're going down is the correct one. This is something that I refer to as question 0. I think we're getting into the details of what the costs are and how to pay for it before we've answered that question. And if we determine that this is still the path that the city wants to go on from a policy perspective, then I think we can have the discussion about the pricing and where we need to be from a contract perspective. Again, back when this came before the commission in March, I was supportive of IDE primarily because of their competency in the area, but also because of the guarantee. You know, as a financial person, we always talk about the risk premium. And in this case, with IDE assuming all the risk and giving us a guaranteed price, it justified the higher cost for their proposal relative to the other ones. That's changed a little bit in the intervening period since prices have gone up, and so the guaranteed price that we thought we had all agreed to, the $385 million, has moved up to a point where I think we need to examine that. Not to say that the price is not justified. I certainly appreciate what's going on in the environment with construction costs. But again, I think we need to go back and have a more robust discussion, especially where we need to bring the other two commissioners up to speed on the engineering analysis and why this is the preferred option. And so I had asked the city manager to schedule something in the early part of January. Hopefully everybody is available, and we can have that in a workshop format where we can take a couple of hours, because I think, as you pointed out, Mayor, we're at $700 million in running, and it's been my experience in 23 years of government that turns into $1 billion pretty fast. I've never seen one that doesn't. And so before we embark on something like that, I want to make sure that we are all still committed to the path that we started on a while back. So that would be my recommendation.
So, Greg, how would that work? I mean, we could actually fold that into our goal-setting session day, if we're trying to pick, because it's always difficult trying to coordinate everyone's schedules. But how would we do we have to put out an RFP for that? I mean, how do we get a third opinion on this?
So we can certainly get the third opinion from our owner's rep, Hazen and Sawyer. We have Hazen and Sawyer that is an independent engineering firm that we utilize to give us that feedback. So we can certainly have them look at this, prepare a comprehensive report, and share with you all pros and cons and additional analysis that can help you understand and determine all the complexities of this contract.
Is that consistent with what you were thinking?
Yes, it would be. I think, Hazen and Sawyer, as you say, is under contract. They are our representatives, so I'd be very comfortable with them looking at these two reports and again, explaining to us why this path is still the preferred path in light of the fact that the costs have increased substantially. Is that still the preferred path relative to the alternative?
All right, so,
And if I may, Mayor, I apologize.
It's okay.
I understand your point about wrapping this up in the goal-setting sessions, but again, having sat through those for many years, I know that we typically tend to discuss an awful lot of information. Those used to be two-day sessions, which we've now reduced down to roughly 4-hour session.
okay.
And so I think this merits, because of the magnitude of this, because of the fact that it's going to impact our residents, not only in Fort Lauderdale, but the neighboring cities that buy water from us, I think it merits a discussion of its own.
Okay, so does that make sense to the rest of you? Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, also, I would like to know how this might fold in to what was just told to us about a city town hall presentation for the public as well. That's part of the plan as well. So where does that piece fit in? Could we fold that into this workshop, or?
Which
Well,
part?
actually, Alan presented, actually it's on the slide right now. If you look at the 1, 2, 3, the third bullet down, City Town Hall presentation for the public. So how does that fold in to the workshop, to the goal-setting workshop? I mean, I'm just wondering if we can.
Well, everyone's invited, all of our meetings are open to the public.
Right.
So would that qualify as a town hall presentation to the public?
Well, I just want to make sure that perhaps we can fold this all into a meeting, whether it's a half a day or whatever. It's true what Mr. Herb said about the fact that we used to have 2 days for goal setting, but now we're down to about 4 hours. So I don't mind going a full day instead of just the 4 hours. We used to do 2 days. So why not just spend one full day, do our goal setting, and then also deal with that? Because I was going to ask questions of the city manager and city attorney. I am concerned with the age of the plan. I'm concerned with timing. I understand that recently we've had some inspections of the plant. I also just want to make sure that structurally integrity concerns are met. I just want to make sure that we're able to have these kinds of City Hall town presentations, commission workshop. I want to make sure that we're doing this in a timely way. This is a very important issue. We've been talking about it for a long time. We have slowed the process down because we were very cognizant of the fact that we were going to have 3 new commissioners on the dais, and we did that on purpose. We slowed it down. But I want to make sure that, yes, it should be fully vetted by the public. I believe that, as Mr. Herbst said, the new commissioners that perhaps are not as familiar with the rest of it as we are get that benefit of that workshop. But I think we could do it in conjunction with all these other elements, that's all.
All right, well, those are two different issues, and I think they both have merit. But now, keep in mind that these folks have indicated that that their price is only firm until December 31st of this year. So we take that risk, but I do think that Commissioner Herbst's suggestion makes a lot of sense, that we have another pair of eyes look at this, because this is a major investment for the city and a major commitment that we're expecting the ratepayers to participate in. And I think that, I mean, I know that our water plant needs work, and, we're looking at 4 years, almost 4 years to build it. So we need to make a decision sooner than later. But I think if we can do this presentation in January, then let's just try to do that.
Mayor, I would add to that too. Thank you. I think that's a good point. What I would commit to, at least on behalf of myself, is that if we go through this and the commission then has an opportunity to examine it at the early part, I think we can be prepared to move forward at the end of January, beginning of February. So I understand the issue and concerns that ID has brought forward about holding their prices. I know their subs have been holding them for quite a while. But I think if we, as a body, agree to commit to taking final action on this, assuming all the legal documents are prepared, and I understand that's still an issue as well, I think, at least I can tell you from my position, I'll be prepared to move forward with any final agreement following that workshop.
Commissioner.
Mayor, yes. I am in agreement. I do believe that I would definitely benefit from a workshop to get, brought up to speed, to understand what is going on. I have been following this, but to be in a position to, all the nuts and bolts coming together, I need to know that. And I'm very concerned and want to make sure as well that our constituents, they know and understand what this is all about. So I am in favor of taking that moment, the workshops, to be informed so we could properly go ahead and present or make a decision on it.
Okay. Commissioner Sturman, do you have any thoughts?
How to get the,
There you go.
how to get the microphone working. Okay, good. Does the public have a chance to have input today? I'm curious. Are they going to have?
Yeah, there are a
public
few
speaking?
people that have signed up to speak.
Okay, because I have a few thoughts I want on this matter, but I'll let them speak. I mean, some of the people that I've spoken to have some issues with using a P3 vehicle for water treatment to begin with, and this is something that does need public input, and it shouldn't be done over the holiday when people are away. This is a big decision we're going to make. You brought up something just a moment ago I was going to question you brought up already. I guess the price is fixed till December 31st, which means if we don't act on this by December 20th, the price can go up. It's now, I guess, 185 plus the 485 brings it over 650, 660 million. So that's a concern. I agree that we do need a little bit of time. I don't think that by December 20th we're going to be ready. Is that, Greg? Is that right?
Well, considering doing a public outreach strategy and engagement strategy with workshops and ample town halls, I think it would be prudent, like the commissioner says, to do something post-holidays, January.
Right. And there's a lot of people in my district that want input in this, that feel strongly about this. I think, I can't possibly see doing this before the end of the year.
Can we also hear from the city attorney in terms of, there were issues previously about the actual comprehensive agreement, entity names, who are we dealing with? There were several issues that we've gone through where we still were up in the air with the comprehensive agreement. How are all of those other issues, aside from what we've been talking about right now, coming along?
We are working on them. They're not fully resolved yet. We've made some progress. We had the corporate entity issue as to who exactly is going to be executing these agreements on behalf of Ridgewood or IDE. There's a corporate structure that was initially suggested that we recommended against. We've made some progress there, but we're not there yet. With regards to the labor services agreement, it's, in all fairness, it's very convoluted when you have your employees being supervised by a private entity, there's all kinds of contingencies that can occur from a liability standpoint, so we're working through the indemnifications and that. So again, not saying we're not going to get to a resolution, but we're not quite there yet. And I would probably be, I couldn't say that we would be ready December 20th to get that teed up for you adequately, because I think beyond just workshopping it, I think from a legal standpoint, as I like to do with these very large agreements, is have some time with you individually so we can walk through the agreements and I can actually explain some of these things or questions you may have that I can answer.
And I think that's the prudent way to go. I agree with my colleagues. I think December 20th is unrealistic to come back to us with a comprehensive agreement. But I also would hope that IDE has listened to this conversation and understands that it's difficult for us to just say, oh my gosh, price increases are going to happen in a couple of weeks, and we're under the gun. So I think everyone understands we have a new commission now. People need to be comfortable. People need to be up to speed. And I would certainly hope that IDE would honor that and understand why we just need a few more weeks to work this out as a city and as a commission, and would, still be respectful of the prices that we're dealing with now. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a few people signed up to speak. Marilyn Mamanos, followed by Nancy Thomas, followed by Boyd Corbin. Give you a couple minutes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners, one and all. My name is Marilyn Momano. I am the chair of the Infrastructure Task Force Advisory Committee. I'm speaking today on behalf of the committee. We had a meeting yesterday, and we went over all of the information that you all have in your packet. And before I get into the issues of substance, including chronology and process, I do want to take a moment to thank all of the members of the staff, all the staff, from the city manager to the assistant city managers to the finance directors to Alan and his entire staff. We want to thank them very much for the time and the effort they have given us to participate in this process. They have provided us with information. They have answered questions. They have gone over process and substance with us. And to a person, we really want to thank them for the work that they've done. Now, getting into the substance. The document you have before you today, this is a more refined and comprehensive and detailed document than the one that you saw on October, I believe it was 18. And a lot of that has to do with the work that we have done with the staff on trying to flesh out some of the issues that accrue to this very complicated hybrid P3 that we are doing. And our job since February of this year, when the commission made its decision to go P3, is to work collaboratively with the staff to make sure that it's the best proposal and the best deal that can be gotten, and that it protects the concerns that we had always raised with you, the maintaining the control of the water, maintaining the control of the quality, maintaining the control of the asset and the rates. So our concerns are still all those concerns that we have been talking about, and we have been working since you made the decision to go P3, which of course, if you recall, and perhaps the new commissioners don't recall, was not the recommendation of the Infrastructure Task Force, but you make the decision, and we were working cooperatively to get that put together in a way that you could get enough information so that you can make a reasonable decision. So the new document now is got information about the chronology of how we got to where we are. Oh, and I must say, the second purpose of this new and improved document was to try and massage it into a state where the public can really understand it, okay? Because the first document was not comprehensive, and we needed to add more information to it in anticipation of having some community input. And again, I want to thank the city manager immediately upon we talked about this, said, yes, you're right, we need to go that route. We need the public to understand why it is we're spending this much money, why it's necessary to get a new plant, and all of the ancillary issues about it. So now it's got more information in it. The last page especially is a page that we wanted to have included, which is this new page that wasn't in the original document. What we're trying to tease out with this is how much is this going to cost us, okay? And what portion of that is attributable to the P3 process, and what is attributable to all the things we would have to do anyway. All the enabling works, paying for the chemical, the salaries, the electricity, we would have to do that ourselves if this were our plant. So there's no reason to attribute that to the cost of this P3. So we're trying to tease out what portion of this rate increase is attributable to doing a P3 as opposed to doing it ourselves. We're not quite there yet. There's more work to be done.
So Marilyn, when
Yeah.
I questioned them, I wanted to make sure that between the competing companies, we were dealing with apples and apples. I want to make sure that when every company gave their price, that it was for the same thing. And I'm not sure that was the case.
I am not opining on that because that
Yeah.
is not what you asked us to opine on.
Right, I know.
That was not our
we'll
bailiwick, so to
delve
speak.
into that. We'll get to that, yeah.
Excellent. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that there's enough information specifically and importantly for you to make a good decision and for the public to understand why you made that decision. What are the component parts? So I think the bottom line that we can tell you today is that it has raised a lot of questions, probably more questions than answers, as we get deeper into what is the cost attributable to the various parties. And we would like very much to continue working with the staff on this and developing this to become a document that is really helpful to the public and to you all. And to the extent that we are your advisory board, if you would like us to participate in that workshop, or if you would just like to have a meeting with us to go over
Do you think it's a
this,
good idea?
I think it's an excellent idea.
Okay, so you obviously need to be part of that workshop.
We would be always willing and able to accommodate you in that.
Okay, great.
So that's where we stand right now, and to be continued.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy,
Questions, I'm happy to answer.
I'm sorry? You want to ask questions of them? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Okay, just to reiterate, Marilyn, the Infrastructure Task Force recommended originally against a P3, is that correct?
That is correct.
And why is that?
We felt that there was, this is a utility, okay? And that the purpose of a P3 in general is to partner with a private sector group that had expertise and financial ability that we don't have. In other words, if we were a small city in the middle of Iowa somewhere, and we had to build a new water treatment plant, I mean, they don't have Alan and his group. They don't have a AAA credit rating. So they need the expertise and the financial assistance of a private entity to get it done. We don't need that. And that is evidenced specifically by the fact that the original proposal, okay, when it was $385 million, they were going to finance the whole thing. Now we're financing 75%. We could reduce the cost of this by financing the whole 100% because we have a better credit rating than any private entity. So things have changed, but the concept of, did we need to do a P3? Okay, did we need a partner to get this done? We did not believe we needed a partner to get it done. And it brought up all kinds of difficulties. It's a hybrid situation. Alan just, the city's attorney just explained to you that, it takes a long time to make this comprehensive agreement because there's conflicts. You got liability conflicts, you got labor conflicts, you got to meet with the Teamsters. I mean, it takes a lot of time to work that out, and it's still not fully worked out. So, it just seemed to us that, yes, we acknowledge if we do it ourselves, there will be an additional amount of time necessary to do it, especially now since we've spent all this time getting to this point. But we felt that, and my testimony is here, I can read it to you, we had on board in February, when the commission made this decision to go P3, we had Hazen and Sawyer on board. They'd been on board for months. They hadn't been tasked with doing anything, and they've only been tasked with doing anything since May of this year when we started really working on the, review of the details of this. They are available. They are qualified. They have an intimate knowledge of our entire system. They could have run us immediately into an RFP, and we would have been able to do this ourselves. So I hope that illustrates
Marilyn, can I just-
conceptually.
can I just
Wait a second.
interject
Yeah, yeah,
something?
yeah. Mhm.
I hear what you're saying as far as the infrastructure task force making its recommendations, but it's not that the commission ignored your recommendation. It's that staff made the recommendation that we go through by this path. And so, I think one of the controlling reasons was because the private sector could complete this 2 years ahead of time. And that is important to us. So we're trying to balance the pros and the cons. So-
Absolutely, and that's why we pay you the big bucks, to do the balancing here, okay? And so it seemed to us, it always seems to us, we just an advisory board. You asked us to look at it, Commissioner Moritas specifically asked us to look at whether or not we thought an RFP was the better way to go, and we made our recommendation. It's your decision. So subsequently, we've been working to advance your decision. But if you want to review that, we'd be happy to work with you on that as well.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go ahead. Wait, Commissioner Sturman, are you finished?
No, I could.
Continue, please continue.
Okay, Marilyn, one other thing. In the community, one of the other concerns that came up, and maybe you could address this, is the risk involved. I mean, if there's a problem with our partner not completing the risk, or for whatever reason it falls back on the city, was that a concern?
Well, just as the concern was that there are conflicts with a hybrid situation, that's another conflict with a hybrid situation. Because in the end, you're responsible. When I don't get water on my tap, I'm not going to IDE. I'm coming here and I'm complaining to you, and I'm going to call you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and ask you why I don't have any water. So that's one of the additional. There were many conflicts with the hybrid situation. That was one. The labor was one, the standards were what I believe you will have like 20 appendices in this comprehensive agreement after the 70 pages of the comprehensive agreement, which, by the way, we have not seen yet, and you have not seen what it is, and the devil is always in the details. The reason you have that is because it's a hybrid situation, so everything has to be specified and coordinated. It's very complicated. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying that by the very nature of a hybrid situation, it's more complicated, takes more time, and you're going to have to monitor this for 30 years. You're going to have the city attorney is going to have a special attorney who's like on top of this all the time, because there's inevitably going to be conflicts, which you wouldn't have if it was run as part of our utility operations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to have Alan come up and address some of the issues that we just heard. If there's anything that you're quite not agreeing with, I'd like to hear that. I want to hear why you did recommend P3. Was it just
Nancy, you may want to take a seat.
Sorry. Was it just a matter of 2 years happening faster for us to build the plant? If you could address those issues of conflicts and comprehensive agreement and labor and et cetera, that you just heard. I want to just hear your perspective on those topics that were just brought to our attention.
Yes, Commissioner. This is definitely more complicated than if we were to build it ourselves and operate it ourselves. However, when we were back in February, March, when we were making these decisions, one of the primary concerns was time and the ability to execute contracts of this magnitude. And that was the advantage that going with the P3 did bring to us. For us to move forward on our own, it would take about 2 years longer. And so that was a conscious thought in the process. The other part on it is when it comes to risk transference, what we are doing, when the agreement is signed, the operating company, the project company, would take over responsibility for the long-term maintenance of it, replacing pumps, filters, all that would be embedded into the cost. It would be a known factor from that point forward and not at risk of inflation. So that led into also the decision to move forward with the P3. My concern has primarily been on the technical side, making sure that we have a path forward to produce safe, clean drinking water, reliable technology that will protect us against extreme weather events, hurricanes, and this did give us a path forward for that.
So what about, let's talk about costs, P3 versus if we did the RFP that's been mentioned. What's the difference there for the city as you would see that going forward, not just in the immediate future, but over, let's say, the 30 years?
Well, we have not designed a plant equivalent to this. We have not done any analysis of the cost that they put into it to come up with the $485 million price tag. But based on what was in the Corolla report and some other factors, Hazen and Sawyer did look and say within the range of the unknown, which it can be plus or minus 50% or more, this pricing is about right for a plant of this size and magnitude. As far as the enabling works, we did not do in-depth analysis of those prior to going to it. We knew we would have to do it. However, those costs have increased as well, particularly as we were looking at, they started looking at the actual condition of the water, information that was not available to them, which would require the pre-treatment and some other factors in order to process it properly and produce the water quality that we want. So the cost has gone up, and I think that is just the truth is that it is going to cost more than that original proposal of $385 million in order to fully build a plant and have it integrated within our systems. Now, I can't tell you for sure it would be more expensive or less expensive without doing a design, and figuring out what it would be for a city-only process to go design build. But the analysis that we did shows that it's comparable to what they are proposing.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
That 2-year time addition, we've done a lot of work already. Is there any way to cut that 2-year differential down if we did it ourselves?
Excuse me, could you say that?
That extra 2 years, if we did it ourselves, as opposed to P3, is there any way to cut that time down?
Yes, a lot of that is, though, it's the procurement processes that we'll have to go through. If we sign this agreement, they already have a design builder on board. They would be able to move right into finalizing the design and do construction. We would have to develop a design criteria package, go out and do a solicitation, which is at least 6 months, and then go through a process of awarding a contract and getting them on board. So that's why 2 years is probably realistic. We can definitely do steps to cut a few months off that, but realistically, it would take us about 2 years to catch up to where they are right now.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions of Mr. Dodd? Nope. Okay. Nancy Thomas, followed by Boyd Corbin, followed by Mary Fertig.
Thank you. I am looking at this from more of a bird's eye view because I have not been involved like Marilyn and the infrastructure task force. So, but that's not a bad thing to kind of look at it wholly. And I think you all know I feel very strongly about public outreach, especially for, well, particularly public-owned land for very expensive projects. This is one of them. And if there's, I'm sorry that there wasn't public outreach pretty broadly sooner than this, because I think that we can make that happen, and I think that would be helpful to you. And the reason is, it's very, very expensive, and I can tell you, people are not happy about their water bills in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Anecdotally, but I can tell you, everybody I talk to, except my son, who, one person, he doesn't use that much water, but people will be this is very price sensitive, cost sensitive to the citizens. The other part of it that I think they might want to be aware of is the control of the water, the control of its, who is the final voice in if the price has to go up or if something else in terms of quality comes up, who is it? Is it Ridgewood as the investor operator? I am asking that question.
Good questions.
We can answer.
Can you answer that?
So as part of the operations agreement in here, and there's an annex that will go through that in more detail. 2 months prior to any day, we will have to provide them how much water we want them to produce. And we have some ability, we'll make adjustments, but we agree on if we need 30 million gallons, 38 million gallons per day. They will then go and they will program in how we're doing it and give directions to our operators who will produce that water. We will then be conducting testing of the water on a daily basis to make sure that it meets the water quality standards and that it satisfies the requirements of the contract. So we will control the requirements for how much is made and the standards that is produced to ensure that it complies with the contract and our city's needs.
Can I ask you a question? Is it possible to bifurcate the building of the plant and the management of the plant? I mean, these came in as unsolicited proposals. Can we go out to market and say, we just want someone to build the plant for us, do it do it faster than we can, and then and then hand us the keys and we'll take over from there? Is that still possible?
At this point, I believe it is. That would be, have to go through a procurement process to get those services and do it. But at this point, I think everything is still on the table until we enter into an agreement.
Okay, thank you. Why is there a monitor right there? It's blocking Commissioner Sturman's ability to see the speaker.
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Yeah.
Well, oh, Nancy,
Just a couple other things. In any project, but especially something as complicated and costly as this, what other cities in the United States or the world, there must be other cities who found themselves in this position. Are there any models that the city can use to follow? How did they do it? What was the most efficient way to do it? It just seems to me that, everybody's using water, so maybe there are some other cities with this kind of experience in having to build a new water plant. That's one thing. The other is, my husband's worked in engineering construction his whole career. And so I've talked to him about P3s and design build and all that stuff. And I guess he said design build, you definitely have control. When you're talking about water and cost, people want control. It's not like you can fire waste management and find somebody else. This is a different ballgame. So the question is, can the city find an expert or an expert to lead this project, just this project if necessary, and get somebody to build it and hire somebody to manage it or develop a department that manages it? I think the P3 idea makes me very uncomfortable, again, because of the cost, because of the product. And I understand you got this unsolicited proposal, but if we have time, we really should look at it from a different way. Assuming the city couldn't do it, I don't believe that's true. If there are companies out there who are experienced building these types of things. So that would retain control, probably won't cost any more, and maybe with somebody, who knows what they're doing, it could be fast-tracked a little bit. So I think you'd want to ask the public something like that. What do they think is best to go forward?
Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question, Mayor, for Alan
Yes.
again. As
Sure.
a follow-up to this, thank you. So we've heard some discussion today about maybe an RFP going out, taking a couple of years longer, et cetera, et cetera. Who were the companies that we had responding once we put out we did receive an unsolicited proposal, and then we were required by state statute to open this up, which we did, and we received how many more proposals?
We received 3 other proposals.
3 others. So we had a total of 4 proposals.
Yes.
Okay. Would you say that those 4 proposals were leaders in this industry and people that build these types of plants?
Yes, as we reviewed them, they were all fully qualified to build the type of project that we're talking
Okay.
about.
If we scrap this process right now that we've been involved in, for how long? How long have we been involved in this right now with IDE? And actually, the
Since March.
the unsolicited proposal was first presented when?
March.
It was before I was mayor,
Okay,
so
so
it was like 2016.
Okay, so this has been going on for quite a while, is my point. And we had 4 companies that are internationally known for building these types of plants, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if we scrap this, how many years of process that we've been through and open this up to an RFP, who do you expect would respond to the RFP?
I would expect those companies, the design-build portion of them would probably apply, and there are probably other companies in the United States and internationally that would be interested in it.
Okay, but we would certainly expect the 4 companies that we've already vetted and gone through the process the last few years to apply.
I would think there would be interest in it. I don't know if they would apply or not.
Okay, but my point, Mayor, is that I don't think that we would see much of a difference in terms of who would actually be applying to do that work. And I just wanted to ask you what your opinion was of that, and if you thought that there were other folks out there that might. But I'm thinking that we would still be faced with the same companies that we did initially look at before we made the final determination to go forward with IDE. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Mayor,
Alan.
may I just
Yes,
respond
go
to that comment? I think the only difference, Commissioner Glassman, is this being design, build, operate, and maintain. Whereas if we just do an RFP for design, build, it's a completely different contract. So if we go out, and again, I'm not advocating that we do that, but I just want to clarify for everybody, it's the operation piece that's the singular component of the P3 process that we wouldn't have if we were simply doing a very straightforward design build. That's something that the city has, significant experience in doing in a lot of other projects that we've done. Again, I'm not advocating that we go that route. I'm just saying that if we did, I don't imagine that we would be putting out a bid that would reflect the P3 proposal that we have.
Understood. Thank you.
But it's the operation and maintenance that's giving us the agita in this whole process. The design build seems like the easy part, and it's the operations and maintenance that we're having a problem with.
Agreed.
From a legal perspective as well as an operational perspective.
You're exactly right, Mayor, because that is where the devil is in the details, is on the operational issue. The maintenance one is relatively straightforward. It's the operational aspect, and it's the performance criteria part of how we hold them accountable going forward over the life of the contract that I think is going to be an area where the city has to be very careful in how we manage that contract. In all P3s, the most difficult part of outsourcing anything is in contract compliance. We see this with our sanitation contracts. We see it with every time we outsource a particular city function. It's holding the vendor accountable for delivering on our performance standards.
Thank you. Mr. Corbin.
Yeah, Boyd Corbin. And the operation part is going to be the incredibly expensive part of this whole thing because we're using nanofiltration, which uses an obscene amount of electricity, tens of millions of dollars per year. Now, in 1992, Reese Engineering, which has worked, forever with this city, recommended that we refurbish 5-ash with carbon and ozone. And actually, in 2021, just last year, they recommended the same thing. But here's the thing. This whole P3 and all these bids and everything is all based on the very faulty Corolla report. And let me tell you why the Corolla report is garbage. For 2 reasons. Number 1, it says we cannot use ozone. Why? Because they say that there may be too much bromide in source water. I asked Lyle Muntz, the guy that wrote the Corolla report, what is the level of bromide in the source water? He said, I don't know. Okay? So the other reason is that they were saying, well, we can't use carbon because it would cost between $130 million a year and $158 million a year to use carbon that is garbage. Reese came along last year and said, first of all, no problem with bromide. Second of all, carbon will cost about $7 million a year. These are two of the best ways to filter water to give us clean, clear water. Now, why are we building a new plant? Because the Corolla report went over that. And they went through the different options, refurbishing 5-ash, build a new plant. And the main reason is that because nanofiltration, well, we ruled out ozone and carbon, but nanofiltration will not fit physically on the 5-ash site right now. So that's why we're moving the plant 4 miles in the wrong direction, and we're building $181 million worth of, what's it called? Enabling works, which is pipes to connect it to the current 5-ash. We could refurbish 5-ash with carbon and ozone for $170 million. And it could be done within a couple years instead of waiting 4 years. And the thing is, Alan just sat here and told us that our water is yellow because of the tannins in the water. BS. Water comes out of 5-ash green. Why? Because of the tannins it picks up as the water comes through the Everglades. Okay? It turns yellow because we put ammonia in the water. Ammonia and chlorine makes chloramine. And it's bad for 2 huge reasons. We'll get into that later. But the ammonia in the chloramine is corrosive, and it is corroding our metal pipes. And that's why the water is yellow and sometimes brown, like at the Metropolitan Complex in Wilton Manors. It's rust. We are drinking metal right now. And no one has even mentioned the word ammonia. It's so important that we wean ourselves away from this horrible chemical, ammonia, which makes chloramine. Chloramine is bad for 2 reasons. One, directly, infants under 6 months old, it's really bad for some of them. It can kill them. 2, people with suppressed immune systems, people with HIV, people with chemotherapy. Dr. Sturman, in one word, why is chloramine bad for those people?
Boyd.
The one word is bacteria.
Mr. Corbin, your time is concluded. Please.
It does
wrap up your
not,
remarks.
you let them speak, and I know 5 times more than those other people, and I'm here to answer questions too.
Well, this is not a debate.
Chloramine, I won't ask him any more questions. Chloramine is very bad because it is a much weaker disinfectant than straight chlorine. So it leaves all these other bacteria to attack people with compromised immune systems. And then the other way chloramine is bad is it mixes with the real tannins that are in the water, and it creates these really bad chemicals that the EPA, we have safe water guidelines for that, but we never test them during the 3-week free chlorination burns.
Do me a favor. Can I make a comment for a second?
Go ahead.
Mr. City Manager, maybe it's worthwhile taking a tour of the 5-ash, learning some of the issues here and bring us up to speed offline. Is that possible?
Certainly, we can schedule and coordinate tours
Some of the issues we could talk
with the electeds.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Corbin.
Well, does anyone have any questions about what I was just talking about?
He just asked the question. He got it answered. Does anyone else have any questions of Mr. Corbin?
Join me there.
No one else has any other questions, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Your time
I
is
hope
up.
you guys don't make.
Mary
the same
Fertig,
mistake.
followed by the reoccurrence and the reappearance of our count.
Mayor, I would like to ask Alan or IDE to address some of the questions I have after we just heard that last testimony, if that's okay.
You have a question? Can it wait till after the speakers
Sure, of
conclude?
course.
Mary, why don't you come back up, please?
Thank you. I had like three thoughts when I came in. You took care of a couple of them. One was, it seems like every December last meeting, we have what we call a holiday surprise. We put something on the agenda that's a really important topic
about it.
at a time of year when we know that a lot of people are either going to be gone or have other engagements. So I'm happy to hear that there won't be a holiday surprise if I understood it correctly today. Because I think that's one thing that we've heard a lot of people make commitments to, but hasn't actually happened. So, okay. You were here September 6th, and I came and spoke September 6th. One of the things I asked at that time was that the comprehensive agreement be made available to the public at least 2 weeks before this comes to the commission. These are very lengthy agreements, and we can hopefully agree that the public comment on some of these, whether we've been happy with the outcome of the project, has been better because of the input from the public. And so I think it's really important, particularly on this topic, which is probably the number one most important thing in our lives that we have a water supply. So I would ask that comprehensive agreement be made available at least 2 weeks in advance. And the third thing I was going to mention before I get into the points that you spoke about today, we've talked at every one of these meetings on a P3 about having a city ordinance written specifically for Fort Lauderdale on the P3. And as we stand here today, I have no idea what the progress on that is, but I sure haven't seen it on the agenda. The comment, 24 months, it's somewhat ironic. Thank you for doing that wonderful PowerPoint with the chart, which shows us that 24 months ago, you received the unsolicited proposal. And if you add 24, check my math, Susan, if you add 24 to 42, you come up with 66 months it'll take the city to do this. When we came in September, we were pretty much told this was a done deal. The contract was coming October 18th. Now it's not even coming 2 months later. It's maybe 3 months later, maybe 4 months later. So I think that time is important, and it was a consideration, but obviously there is no certainty that this P3 is going to have been completed in less time than if you had moved ahead with an RFP in 2020. I'm going to say that comment for last. I've done the math on this. You've now added we came.
Is that going to be a December surprise?
Yes. So when we came in, and I asked you to check my math then, when we came September 6th, we talk about how much the city is now putting into this project. And now today it's more. So it looks like over 80% is city funded. But I have a question on money. I'm assuming this is being done because the partner in this will make a profit. Good assumption? Yes or no?
Probably.
So if that's the case, are we still going to make a return on investment? And if we're not, what is the economic impact of that to the city? And how will that impact the work that we do?
Well, wouldn't it make sense that if we are reducing the cost of the construction, that we don't have to charge as much in our water rates, so that's the return on investment?
Well, your water rates are going up.
Well, yeah, but not as much if we save money on the construction,
Do we
correct?
know that?
I'm sorry?
Do we know that?
Well, that's all
Because
part
to
of,
me,
that's
it
all
looks
part of
like-
the analysis, yeah.
Oh, is it? Is it?
Susan, you want to come up and explain that?
Tell me your question one more time, though.
All right, let me start with question one. Will we continue to make a return on investment?
We've stopped doing, the city has stopped the return on investment from the water and sewer fund to the general fund. So there is no longer a return on investment. I think it might have been up to 20 million a year, Laura, maybe, was it 20 million?
Right.
Yes, so that has stopped.
Let me ask that a different way. Do you continue to make a profit that you reinvest into the water?
No.
You
The
make no
city-
profit?
The city does not, no.
Does anybody, so we
No,
just,
it's a
whatever
it's-
your cost is what's returned to us with no added?
Correct, it's a pass-through. Whatever we issue in debt and whatever payments we make to the P3 provider, it's just a pass-through that goes into the rate model. And, we have to have adequate rates to support. If we're going to issue debt, we must have an adequate rate model that supports that debt. That's just going to be one of the requirements.
And no more than that.
And if we do the whole thing ourselves, that doesn't change. We have to have rates in place that can support debt of 500 million, whatever that number is.
Right, okay. Okay, so, a question about the testing. Are you testing this water daily? Do we currently test the water daily? Will there be any difference in the testing? And I just want to say, this is a public utility. It's a public service. It's more than that to the residents. It's what keeps us going here in our community. And we're getting ready to enter into a P3. I just wonder, are we going to do a P3 that replaces our other utilities? Is this going to be the new trend that we get into it to replace the water lines that are coming to our homes? This seems like one utility that we've picked out. And having heard the conversation today, I hope you're going to take a new look at going back to an RFP and doing a new timetable. And the last thing I want to say, which I probably shouldn't say, but I'm going to say anyways, it's amazing to me that it was okay for Ernst & Young to do an opinion on this particular item. Thank you.
You're welcome. Count, please step forward. Welcome back.
Questions have been asked, and I have some potential answers, which have the advantage of making the lives of the members of the City Commission more comfortable. In Macon, which is a city but also a county, because the city and the county merged, they redid their city, which is now city-county government, so that all water matters. You know, the water treatment plant, the water things, water leaks, everything is handled by an independent city water commission where all the activists get to run for paid jobs as commissioners, where all the people with complaints go to meetings, and the elected city officials in the county and the city and the staffs can do their normal business, and all the water problems are shipped out someplace else. Second of all, if you want to be as careful with the dollars that you spend on water, I would suggest that you get what the Macon Bibb Water Authority pays for their construction and their management and their projects. I know in Georgia, in rural Georgia, we pay very cheap rates. If you want to beat down your suppliers, your vendors, or your public partnership, somebody should get the bills, the rates, and the charges that they pay in other places. And when someone comes in with great expertise and great ethics and great morality, but wants to charge you 150% of what you can get, let's say for 100% or less than 100%, I think that's how you negotiate. Because as far as I can see with this project, you are almost the victims of everybody coming to you, telling you, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do the other thing. And look, we all know that Hazen Sawyer is the pioneer in water plants. We can't take that away from them. But you know, when you're the best in the field, you don't really look at yourself critically. Nobody looks at Hazen Sawyer because they are the best. They're so up top with technology that there's no one really around that can examine their work. So in my humble opinion, if you want to be careful with money, you should get another municipality that has these water issues and see what they're paying. I said this about construction. You should compare it to what's being paid in Miami-Dade, and I'll say it now again. You should see comparables from other places. Don't go naked into the lion's den of experts.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item from the public? Okay, anyone on the commission? I guess going forward, we're talking about the having the workshop in January. Okay.
Yeah, if I may summarize, Mayor. So next steps, scheduled to meet with the new commissioners individually to get them up to speed. We're going to have those discussions. And in those meetings, we're also going to schedule tours to the water treatment plant as well, individually. We will have a workshop for this item in January, sometime in January for the public. We'll coordinate amongst your schedules so that can become available. We can also host virtual town halls for those that can't make it, also have another opportunity to do public outreach via those methods. We're going to engage with Hazen and Sawyer to do a third opinion, if you will, on the two reports and also the pros and cons and approaches, and also look at comparables for the other cities and what their construction costs are. And we look forward to having a better outlook for you all to have a comprehensive look so that this can potentially be reviewed sometime in late January, early February.
Okay, Commissioner Sherman, did you want to say something?
Okay, Mr. Herbst, is it accurate to say this might be the most expensive decision we have to make in the next year or two, money-wise, about this, dollar-wise? I mean, can I ask you that?
What was the question?
I mean, this is a financial commitment that we're making. This is a huge financial, I mean, the scope of the problem is, number one, water is critical to us. I mean, during a hurricane, that's probably the one thing ahead of electricity and TV and cable that we need. Money-wise, this is a huge thing for us. Mary, you had wanted access. What was it exactly that you were asking earlier access for? Okay.
Come on up.
Yeah, come on up.
Wait, we can't hear you there.
Yeah.
If you can come up to the podium. She wanted the comprehensive agreement to be presented to the public at least 2 weeks prior to any vote.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, just so you know, because that's going to govern what happens here for the next, how many years ever it is?
30 years, yeah.
30 years.
That makes a lot of sense.
So my point was, City Manager, because of the financial as well as quality of life impact, this is a huge decision. Is it possible to get that information earlier for the public to see?
Absolutely. One of the reasons we have not shared that is because we're still under negotiation, and all the terms and conditions have not been finalized yet. And we do have that commitment to do that public engagement. We will share what we have as we get it.
Okay. Well,
The one issue, sorry, Commissioner, the one issue we have with, it's a public record, but part of the problem we have when we distribute a work in progress is it changes every day, especially now since we're getting towards the finish line. So the copy you get today is going to be different than the copy you get tomorrow. So once it gets out in public, they're working on the static document for weeks. And then by the time we get to a discussion point, it's completely changed. So we try to provide the information rather than the document because it gets very confusing and it creates a lot of confusion in the public.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mayor, can I add then to that? So I think the key here is if we are going to commit to try and have a meeting, and I'm going to put this out there as what I think is probably the most feasible, would be the first meeting in February to approve this in its final form. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that we have to have pencils down on a comprehensive agreement by a date certain.
I would agree.
So I think it's incumbent on IDE and its team to work with your office and say, we've got a hard cutoff. If you want us to be able to approve this at the first meeting in February, then again, pencils down and we can pick a date. It's arbitrary, I recognize that, but call it Wednesday, January 10th, and that gives 2 weeks for the commission and for the community to take a look at the comprehensive agreement. And it gives you guys basically a month to target for to finalize any of the outstanding items that you think you need to resolve. One thing I have always learned is that having a deadline moves people forward. And without a deadline, things tend to meander. So I say we just have a hard deadline. It's a cutoff. You need to negotiate and resolve any outstanding issues by that date. And then with that in mind, I think we as a body then have the ability to move forward at that first meeting in February and come to a final determination. That would be my recommendation.
Agreed, and we would, to the Commissioner's point, we need that finality to be able to also come to you all individually to provide you the details so that you can go out to the constituency and represent what's in the
But can
agreement.
we impose that kind of deadline on these folks that we want to review the proposal? I mean,
Well, within our team, within our legal teams, we can certainly strive for that date. Obviously, if it's not done, it's not done. And then we have to reevaluate everything. But we can have that goal to do that. Obviously, some of that depends on how smoothly things go going forward with some of the issues. Obviously, we have to involve the Teamsters and so on and so forth, so we do lose a little control there. But certainly, we can have a fixed date because understandably, this is a very,
Let's make it a
very,
target date, so that makes a lot
very
of sense.
complicated agreement that needs a lot of vetting.
All right, do our best to reach that agreement, to reach that target date. What was the date again? You said the first meeting in February?
So I'm going to suggest, Mayor, that we have a target date for the agreement of close of business Friday, January the 20th. That gives us 1, 2,
About 6 weeks.
2.5 weeks. Well, it's 6 weeks for us now, and then 2.5 weeks before the February meeting on February the 7th. So
Okay.
that's plenty of time for the community to have an opportunity to review the agreement. So it's not being presented to them at the last minute. It's plenty of time for individual commissioners to look at this, ask their questions of staff. And I think, I know IDE wants to move this forward as quickly as possible. And certainly the challenges that they're having in terms of holding their price firm is something that I am cognizant of. And I don't want them to have to do that any longer than is absolutely necessary.
Okay.
So I think if we're going to be good partners with IDE, we have to give them some certainty as to how we're going to move forward. And then it's incumbent upon us to stick to that schedule as well.
Very good. Any other questions from anybody?
Mayor, it's not so much a question as is a comment. Also, when we have these public workshops and also our commissioner workshop, I just want to make sure that staff and IDE are able to deal with some of the issues that we, again, heard today from Mr. Corbin, because the prior commission has heard a lot of those claims in terms of treatment options, the whole notion of carbon and ozone versus nano. I want to put that to bed. I want to hear why staff and IDE feels that we cannot refurbish 5 Ash. With carbon and ozone for $170 million. I want all of those issues addressed and clear so that the public hears those answers. And I think that is important for the commission to hear that as well. Thank you, City Manager.
All right.
Will do.
Okay, no one else has signed up to speak, so we'll move on to business 2. Okay, so I don't know if, and thank you folks for being here today. We really appreciate it. So, guess what? In addition to coming here twice a month for the city commission meetings, we have the great opportunity to be part of other boards or committees to which the city usually tries to participate, and Commissioner Glassman and myself have sort of been the default representatives up to now because we lost several of the commissioners who had resigned to run or do other things, to run for other office or do other things. So I'd like to see if we can talk about trying to fill some of these positions. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the backup here to see what exactly is available. So let's just go one by one. Broward League of Cities. For those of you who don't know what Broward League of Cities is, it's basically a group that meets once a month and then annually to discuss issues of mutual significance and importance. A representative from each city. There are 31 cities, usually about 20 or so participate actively. I am the current representative because Commissioner Moritas was the previous representative, and I think it would be great if someone else could take over that role. I've been attending the meetings up till now. I actually went to the National League of Cities meeting in Kansas City last month. So does anyone have any interest in being our representative in the Broward League of Cities? Don't all jump up at once.
Well, you've been doing a great job.
Yeah, thank
Mayor.
you, but I really
good.
am not able to devote the kind of time that I would like, I think it should be.
That really sounds like a mayoral role to me.
No, it's not a mayoral committee.
All these seats have to be filled today?
Well, think about it.
No, can we have think about some of them?
Yeah, we can think about it. We can think about it. But even if you want me to be the current representative, there's still alternate positions that we need to fill there.
Mayor, as we go through these, is it possible to discuss what the timing and workload of these might be? So, for example, League of Cities, if it meets monthly, do we have a sense of when that is?
Just once a month when they schedule. It's basically a lunch.
Is it a standard? Is it every third Tuesday of the month?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's just a luncheon, and it's usually somewhere else in the we've hosted it a couple of times a year. Other cities host it. The last meeting was in Coconut Creek, so it's really a great way to interact and network with other mayors and commissioners throughout the county. We do exchange ideas. It's really kind of helpful to hear what's going on in the rest of the county, and even for projects that affect Fort Lauderdale that aren't just exclusively decisions made by us. It's great to kind of network and try to get support for the things we try to do in our city. The Broward Tourist Development, that I am the current representative. I'm good for the balance of the term. I believe it goes to January 10th of 2024. I'm good with that. The Central Wastewater Regional District Advisory Committee, that's been vacant for quite a while. We have not had a representative there. So, think about that. Continuum of Care, that's regarding homelessness. And I served on that board for several years when I was a commissioner, and it's a advisory board to the county commission, and issues of homelessness come up there. They meet again once a month for 2 hours, and that position has been vacant ever since Commissioner Sorensen had left the city commission.
Mayor, that's
Yes.
advisory board that I am interested in.
You are interested?
Yes, sir.
Bingo. Okay, we got one. Greg?
I nominate Commissioner Beasley Pittman for that board.
We'll vote on that tonight.
Oh, tonight? Okay.
Yeah, we can't vote on it today.
Excellent. Well, just hold that
Change your mind.
nomination. Thank you.
Downtown Fort Lauderdale Transportation Management Association, the TMA. Commissioner Glassman, you're on that right now.
I am. And Mayor, I have a question about that board, and maybe if Ben Rogers can come up and speak to us. I'm not really sure why we're still involved, being that, I mean, all of the services, it's regional. We no longer have Sun Trolley. They have no longer any affiliation with the water trolley. I don't know why we're still involved in this as a city, and especially with two commissioners. So I just had those questions.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioner Ben Rogers, Director of Transportation Mobility. Congratulations to the new commissioners. Glad to have you here. Commissioner Glassman, to answer your question, the TMA, by their bylaws, defines that the county has 2 appointed seats and the city has 2 appointed seats for their commission. Their bylaws are reviewed every year in January. So if we want to have input on modifying our role, I think that would be the appropriate time for that.
When those bylaws were created, though, didn't they have a much different role with regards to the city of Fort Lauderdale?
That's correct. They had a very active role. They were managing our shuttle program and hands-on in the operations. At this point, they're just they're not affiliated with our shuttle program.
Right, and that's my point, Mayor. There really is no connection. Maybe we need to hold off until January when they redo their bylaws, because I'm not sure why we're so actively involved, especially with 2 commissioners sitting on that.
All right, we'll hold that off then.
Okay.
Florida League of Cities, again, if anyone wants to jump on that, I'll be happy to have you take that opportunity to meet mayors and councilmen and commissioners from all over the state. It's actually very, very good experience to get to know what's going on in the rest of the state. But keep that in mind. Florida.
How often is that one, Mayor?
I'm sorry?
How often is that one?
So they meet once a year.
Okay.
And from time to time, they'll have Zoom meetings.
Okay, so it's ad hoc?
I'm sorry?
It's ad hoc, basically? It's, okay.
Exactly.
I'd be happy to consider that one.
Okay. And the Florida Big City Coalition, Florida Urban Partnerships, that meets maybe once a year, so I don't mind staying on that. It's basically the mayors of the 10 biggest cities in the state. International Swimming Hall of Fame, Commissioner Glassman.
I'm sorry. I got you.
You'll continue to be on that?
Did we skip the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, or, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the list.
I'm looking at page 1, and I'm now on page 2.
Okay.
Commissioner, that one changed a little bit. Actually, the current representative is Daphne from staff now.
Okay, for the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance?
So we removed it.
I must be looking at an old document.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. International Swimming Hall of Fame. I believe that their bylaws speak to the district commissioner for that facility sitting on there, and the mayor, I think you're ex officio or ex emeritus for life or something on that. I can't remember, but I'm happy to continue that work as the
Okay.
district commissioner.
Okay. Lauderdale Isles Water Management District, Commissioner Sorensen was the previous representative, so that kind of falls in your jurisdiction, Commissioner Sturman. Metropolitan Planning Organization, this is the county transportation group.
Dean, what's the time commitment for the MPO?
Say it again?
MPO, the time commitment, what is that? How often they meet?
It's once a month. We meet for anywhere between 2 and 3 hours, and I serve on that right now, but we now have a vacancy for the second position. The city of Fort Lauderdale has 2 positions. Is that something you'd like to do? Okay. So we'll think about it again. So, but you know, fine, if you want to put your name as a placeholder, that would be great. National League of Cities. Again, if that's interesting to anybody, I just attended, like I said, the National League of Cities meeting. It's only once a year that they meet. This year it was in Kansas City, Missouri, where it was 22 degrees. Solid Waste and Recycling Working Group, Commissioner Glassman's favorite committee.
Yes, and if anyone feels really motivated for this, please let me know. I will let you know that it meets every other Wednesday for 2 hours. And it's been an intense schedule. A lot of work's been done, but this is a really important issue for not just our city, but also our county. But that's the frequency.
I think you need to come off of that because I look at all the other committees that you are assigned to, and to balance things out, I really think it'd be fair if someone else took your place on that, honestly.
And I understand. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So think about that.
But there is a bit of a commitment to that. I'm not sure where the county is going with this. There was a little bit of a hiccup when it went to the county. I'm not even sure if that work will continue in the way it's been continuing now, but I know that it is a really important issue for us to deal with as a city.
Okay.
Mayor, I served as the auditor for the former Resource Recovery Board when we were suing Broward County over this, and I can tell you from my experience, it is, as Commissioner Glassman pointed out, a very complex area. This is one where I would recommend that Commissioner Glassman stay involved with it because of the history that he's gotten with this since its inception. I think getting up to speed on all those issues would be very difficult, and I think his historical knowledge and understanding of where we are, where we've come from, if you would consider that, Commissioner, I think your background would be valuable. I'd be happy to serve as an alternate, but
Okay.
And I think we actually do need an alternate.
Yeah, we do need an alternate. So,
on
okay.
that. And thank you for those kind words, Commissioner. I'm happy to continue. We have excellent staff, just so you know, who guides us on this all of the time. Melissa Doyle does a great job, as does Rhonda in the city attorney's office. So I think whoever actually is in this role is very blessed to have that kind of staff support, so that really anybody could probably be successful in the role.
Okay, so Commissioner Herbst would be the alternate, and then Sunrise Key, that's again in your district, Commissioner Glassman.
Yes, it is.
So that would be your assignment then.
Yes.
So think about that, folks, and then what I would ask you to do is to contact the city manager between now, I guess, in the next meeting, and tell the city manager what committees you would agree to be on, so that he can put that on the agenda so we can vote on it. Is that the appropriate way to do it?
They can send it
Actually,
to
it would be
me.
the city clerk.
Yeah, they can send it to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
City clerk.
City clerk. David. Let David know.
Yes. And Mayor, if I could just, Commissioner Herbst's remarks notwithstanding, if anyone does feel motivated to do solid waste working group, because I tend to agree with the mayor, I am kind of like heavy throughout all of these here. I just would love to see all of this love get spread around a little bit in terms of the responsibility. But if you do, I just think that we all need to try and have an equal share of all these outside agencies. And so many of the District 2 facilities have that requirement that you sit on their boards, and so there is a lot. I agree with you, Mayor. I understand why you thought that maybe we should look to someone else to do that. But again, that's up to my colleagues.
Perhaps Commissioner Herbst can apprentice with you.
Well, that would be a sunshine violation, so I'm not sure that we would
Well,
be
by
able to
showing
do
up at
that
the
as
meeting.
well. Okay.
Okay, any other committees that were not on the exhibit? Okay, all right. All right, moving on to city commission reports for those that are just beginning their tenure here on the commission. This is an opportunity for each member of the commission to talk about the things that they've done, the things that they're going to do, and any other issues that are important to them for the purpose of this commission being able to entertain a discussion regarding them. So we'll begin with District 1, Commissioner Herbst.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to bring up something that unfortunately is very painful that I would rather have avoided. I had hoped that this election was going to be very smooth and we would get to a point in time where we could all celebrate together the outcome. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And a big part of that, unfortunately, was the city attorney and the city manager, who were both involved in something that I've shared with them that I'm not happy about. We were in violation of the charter. The charter requires us to swear in the newly elected officials on the first Tuesday after the election. That was not done. The instructions that were given by the city attorney was that we needed to wait for the certified vote from the supervisor of elections. We got that on a Friday. I told the city manager that we needed to call a meeting. I said we should do that on Monday, advertise a meeting for Tuesday. He told me we could not do that, that not everybody would be available. Mayor and Commissioner Glassman were both able to attend the Light Up the Beach event on that Tuesday. We had an opportunity to have the meeting on that Tuesday, swear in Commissioner Sturman, Commissioner Beasley Pittman, and evaluate the challenge to my residency. That was not done. I repeatedly urged the city manager to follow the charter. I told him that I believed that they were willfully and intentionally violating the charter, and frankly, I have lost confidence. And so tonight's meeting, I'd like to have a motion to discuss the city manager and the city attorney.
Well, let me respond for a second, because we were all finding that this was new territory for the city, because in previous years, usually there would be an election, and then 2 weeks later, we would be able to swear everybody in. In this particular case, the election was held and the resignations took effect on the day of election. In previous years, the resignations take effect 2 weeks after the election, because that's when their term is officially up. So we did not have that opportunity to be able to convene a commission between that interim time. Then we were told by the supervisor of elections that he could not certify the election results in a couple of situations. In District 4, he would not certify the results because there needs to be a recount, number one. Number two, that he could not certify the results until all the overseas ballots had been returned, and there were approximately 140 that were still outstanding, and there was a 40-something vote gap between the first and second place candidates. So again, if we had sworn Dr. Sturman in earlier than when we received the overseas ballots, and somebody else became the winner, then that would have been a violation of the charter. So in terms
Actually,
of Dr.
if I may, I'm going to correct you on that. So two things that I believe are not accurate with that, Mayor. So the first was the supervisor of election, based on many, many years of running elections, knows that only about 10% of the overseas ballots are ever returned on a regular basis. And they said the likely number of votes to come in would be between 15 and 19, which would have made it statistically improbable that it would have changed the outcome of the vote. Second thing, it would not have been a violation of the charter to swear in Commissioner Sturman. If that vote was challenged, there would have been a judicial process to disqualify him, and we could have moved forward. The advice that we were given by the city attorney is that it would cause irreparable harm. I disagree with that advice. Obviously, the attorney has the right to provide us with advice, but we, as a body, don't have to follow the advice of the city attorney. We have frequently ignored the advice of the city attorney, the city auditor, and the city manager throughout my many years up here. But even given that, after the vote was certified by the supervisor of elections, we had an opportunity for 2 weeks to call a meeting and did not do that.
Part of the reason was because Mr. Boileau was on vacation over the Thanksgiving holiday, and I was away at a conference the following week. So that was the reason why. It wasn't meant to insult you. It wasn't meant to violate the charter. It wasn't meant to hold up the business of the city. It was a logistical problem that occurred. No one could anticipate it. Commitments were made weeks in advance. No one thought that we were going to be in this situation.
Mayor, the city attorney
let me
was
just
not-
finish.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. I apologize. You paused, I thought you were finished.
So we were following uncharted waters here. We've never before been in a situation like this. And I have to say that I appreciate the city attorney and the city manager for consulting with us on a regular basis to try to do the right thing. If you felt in some way that it interfered with your ability to, appear on the dais and be sworn in, I have to say that I personally felt that these gentlemen did their best to try to navigate us through this process. And then in the interim, we had a challenge to your campaign. We had a challenge that, according to the charter, is admissible by filing an affidavit. And today, we thought we were actually going to have a hearing. And because Mr. Keachel didn't show up, and because Mr. Williams withdrew his affidavit, we were able to have a swearing in and the completion of our bringing everyone to the dais on one day today, and everything seemed fine. So I don't know why this is a problem and why you thought anybody was acting in a sinister capacity when everyone was trying to do the right thing. So, I think we need to move forward. The campaigns are over. Let's move forward. I am fully impressed with the abilities of these two gentlemen to help navigate this city through the difficult times that we've had. And honestly, I really believe that this is not the time to be changing leadership. So
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate what you said, but I will point out that I raised the issue about the dates of the swearing in and the official vote count with the city prior to this. I asked this question. I said specifically, when the final vote count is not going to be available at the time of the swearing in, what are we going to do? And I was told we have a plan. Clearly, we did not have a plan. Let me speak to, more specifically, your suggestion that we could not hold a meeting because the city attorney was on vacation. There's nothing in the charter that requires a city attorney to be present. The charter requires that we have a swearing in immediately following the election. There was absolutely no reason to delay that for that week, the week of Thanksgiving. You were here, Commissioner Glassman was here, the three commissioner-elects were here. It's not just myself, Mayor. It's not about my challenge. It is about Commissioner Sturman and Commissioner Beasley Pittman, who were not able to be sworn in. It was the fact that 75% of the residents of the city that voted did not have their vote recognized. And I think that willful and intentional violation of the charter has nothing to do with a vacation.
Well, first of all, Dr. Beasley Pittman was offered the opportunity to be sworn in at that meeting, so that's not the case. Second, and she said she wanted to be sworn in with everybody.
But if you're saying that the vote count wasn't certified, then the vote count wasn't certified. It either is certified or it's not certified. So you can't swear in Commissioner Beasley Pittman and not swear in Commissioner Sturman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I would prefer to speak for myself. When it was brought to my attention the election overall not being certified, District 1, 3, and 4 was told to me it had not been certified. So I made the decision that I would not be sworn in on that day because I was not comfortable with the fact that the supervisor of elections had not officially certified the elections. So I was encouraged to go ahead, it would be no problem. But I was not comfortable with that. I was not comfortable with the advice. So I made the decision not to be certified.
Okay. And so, with regard to Mr. Boileau not being available for the swearing in, the reason why it was important is because that would have been the time when we would have had the hearing on the contest to your eligibility. And because Mr. Boileau was not here, we could not entertain that hearing. I would not feel comfortable. I don't think Commissioner Glassman would feel comfortable, and I don't think this community would feel comfortable without having the advice and the participation of our city attorney in a hearing that has never before been conducted in the city's history, as far as I can recall. This was a very unusual situation, and your eligibility to be a commissioner or to run as a commissioner was being challenged by one of the other candidates, and Mr. Boileau's participation would have been absolutely necessary for us to continue, entertain that hearing. So for you to say that he didn't have to be here is really, I disagree with you. So I don't think there's any willfulness. I don't think there's any wantonness. I don't think there's any sinister motive. Everyone was trying to do the right thing. We're here today. Everyone is sworn in. What did we lose? A week? We're not talking about any measurable damage that was done to anyone in the community as a result. And I think that the best thing for us to do is to continue to move forward and try to do the best thing for this community.
Again, I will reiterate, anytime my charter officers advise that we violate the charter, I will tell you I have lost confidence in my charter officers. So
Okay.
again, I want to have an item on the evening agenda to discuss their respective contracts.
You're welcome to make that motion.
Thank you. The other item I want to bring up, Mayor, is your Chief of Staff, Scott Wyman. As we all know, has been reported in the press, your Chief of Staff called up Chris Williams after he had withdrawn his complaint and attempted to persuade him to reinstate that complaint. That, as far as I'm concerned, is witness tampering and interference in an election. I am surprised that you did not immediately terminate him. Had he been my employee, he would have been out of a job on Monday morning.
I don't think that's what happened.
Mayor, please, let me finish.
Okay.
Thank you. We have all heard the voicemail that he left. We have read the transcript of it. And since you have chosen not to terminate him, I'm calling for an independent outside investigation of Scott Wyman's behavior and his attempt to interfere with the results of an election. Thank you.
Okay. Is that your report?
That is my report.
Okay.
I would like to have a motion on the evening's agenda to hire an outside firm to conduct an investigation of your Chief of Staff.
So it was my understanding, in reference to Mr. Wyman, that that the call was made to Mr. Williams to confirm that whether or not he was withdrawing his affidavit. And because all we heard was secondhand information, and I think it was important and incumbent upon everyone to find out what was going on there. So
If I may, I need to interrupt you on it and ask for clarification. Was he doing that at your direction with your authorization?
I found out about it afterwards.
Okay, because it is a federal crime for an election official, which you are, to interfere with an election. So I want to make sure on the record that he either had your authorization or he did not, please, because I want to make sure I didn't mishear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Beasley Pittman.
Mayor, may I just address some of this that we've been listening to and also your comments as well?
What, say it again?
I'd like to just address this issue before we
go
move
ahead.
on to the rest of the, because, I said a few words this morning when we had the swearing in, and I meant it in terms of us moving forward in a positive fashion as a commission. Campaign is over, election is over. We lost, as I think you said, maybe a week. I just want to remind folks that most of the swearings in the county and in other cities in our county have just occurred this past week. We are not really far behind when you look at what's happening in the county and the city. And the county even had some empty seats, I believe, because of the election and also resignation. So we have not lost that time. I also remember about 10 years ago, my district, District 2, we had our commissioner resign to run for another office. And we did not have a District 2 commissioner for more than 4 months. I believe it was November 2012, all the way through March of 2013. There was no real uproar. There was no real concern. Staff still functioned. Staff was still in place. Again, I'm going to reiterate that I hope that we can move forward as a commission and start on a positive foot. I I would not support the motion to look at the contracts of the city manager and city attorney because I feel that they did the best that they could in responding to an unprecedented set of circumstances in our city. We have never had 3 commissioners resign halfway through their terms for a variety of reasons. One to run for Congress, one to run for county commission, and one just to quit. So we've never had that. So you have to react in real time. It's not always easy. Were people's feelings hurt? I'm sure. We also did not have control as 2 people left on the commission in terms of having a quorum on this dais. The mayor and I did the best we could. I went to every single event, every single meeting that I could while we just had the 2 of us in office. We tried to have, again, a quorum and to deal with it, but we heard from Commissioner Beasley Pittman why she didn't feel comfortable. And I understand that because, yes, she's right. The results were not certified. So we had to wait till the results were certified. And then we did have that, but we also had a very close election in District 4, 49 votes. We also had a challenge to the commissioner elect in District 1. So these are all very extenuating circumstances. I'm sure that if we do have that motion come forward tonight, I will ask the city attorney and the city manager to address their side, because I do believe that you have to hear from everybody and how they reacted in real time. We saw there were legal letters flying back and forth from council, from both Commissioner Herbst and also from the claimant on the challenge. So we had a lot of that was happening in real time, almost every day, every hour of every day. There was really a lot happening. We have a city manager form of government. This dais sets policy, but we have a city manager, we have a staff, we have police, we have a fire. We have all of those folks in place. We have an amazing staff. I don't think we missed a beat. I think that we did fine under those extenuating circumstances. I think we had a really light schedule that was on the last commission day on purpose because of the fact that we knew that new people would be coming on. All we really lost was that CRA meeting in the afternoon and then the evening agenda, which now we have incorporated into today's CRA agenda and tonight's. So I don't think that we really missed a beat. I don't think there was any malicious intent. I think, again, people were trying to adjust to and react to a process as was set out in the city charter and making sure that all parties were heard. I am confident. Did I agree with everything I've heard? No, I have not. And that means on all sides of this issue. But as I said, I really do hope that as a body, we're able to move forward and deal with the issue that we have at hand. We have a lot of work to do, as I said. We must remain civil. We must remain civil as a commission. I believe that we have to work together. The election is behind us. And right now, we have a commission that's seated today. We didn't really miss a beat. So I understand that there might be feelings that are hurt or there are other agendas out there, but I would urge my colleagues to just move forward with the work of the city. I think that we have a city attorney in place who has done a job that we all need to react to and understand exactly what he was reacting to in real time. The same thing with our new city manager, who has only been in place since July. I am very proud of the work that this commission has done these past 4 years and 9 months. And I really want to see us continue those accomplishments in every single district. I don't want us to be distracted by these kinds of arguments. And I think that we need to move forward. With regards to your chief of staff, Mayor, I don't know. Maybe tonight the city attorney can tell us. I've always thought that each commissioner had charge of our own office. And who we hire and who we fire, and all those choices were made within our own office. So I'm not about to get involved in the mayor's office. I wouldn't get involved in Commissioner Herbst's office. I wouldn't get involved in Commissioner Beasley Pittman's office, and I will not get involved in Commissioner Sturman's office. So I would just say I think we need to respect each other. We need to move forward. I am absolutely thrilled, as I said this morning, that we have a full commission. But we only missed a couple of weeks, and as I said, I do remember when my district went for over 4 months without a commissioner, and no one raised that as an issue. So let's just think about it. Let's be practical. Let's be even-headed. Cool, calm, and collected heads must prevail here. It doesn't do the city any good to continue to litigate what we just went through for the last month. As I said, cities and counties just just swore in this past week all of the folks in their cities and the county. So this uproar about, oh my gosh, we haven't sworn anyone in yet, just doesn't hold water with me. So Mayor, thank you for letting me just express myself. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else have any comments?
Mayor, I'd just like to respond to that, if I may. Just so I'm clear, Commissioner Glassman, I think I have been civil. I think my tone has been absolutely professional the whole time, and I will reject your characterization of this as hurt feelings. I look at our city charter as our Constitution. It is our governing document. Violating the Constitution, we swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. Our charter is our Constitution. We swear to uphold it. So this is not about my feelings. The difference between your 4 months of your district being without somebody is that they weren't violating the will of the voters. I think that's a very important distinction. You had a vacancy in your office. I understand that for your district. I get that. There's a clarion difference between that and the voters have spoken and we're not moving forward with our obligations under the charter. So I think that's the difference. It's why I believe this is an important issue. Again, I have no feelings of animosity towards the city manager or the city attorney, none whatsoever. I would not have raised this issue under any other circumstance other than this. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Beasley Pittman, do you have any reports?
Mayor, I just want to respond to that because I do believe that we did not disrespect the will of the voters. In fact, and we did uphold the charter. The charter speaks very clearly if any person, any elector in the city of Fort Lauderdale files an affidavit and a claim objecting to the eligibility and the qualifications of a candidate, that has to be heard. That's all we were doing. We were setting up the process. That was all established for this morning. The mayor saw that no one was there from the claimant's side. Our city attorney had already opined that if there was no one there to present a case, then Commissioner Herbst's due process would have been violated because they could not be cross-examined and the city commission could not question. So actually everybody deferred to Commissioner Herbst's election, and because of the fact that we felt that he could not have due process because there would be no opportunity to cross-examine and for the city commission to have questions, there was no hearing. There was no hearing, and everyone was seated today, which is exactly how it should have been. So I don't believe that the will of the voters was in any way impeded, and I do believe that that will of the voters was respected because we did follow the charter, and we were willing to listen to the claim and the affidavit, and that's exactly what our charter speaks to. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I need clarity. Where are we? What
Right now, all we're here
is
right now,
transpiring?
we're just here to talk about what we call commission reports. And we usually take this as an opportunity.
I'm sorry, that part I understand, but was there a motion or something?
No, see, we don't vote in the afternoon. So Commissioner Herbst has asked that we bring it up tonight, and he will be allowed, because there is an opportunity at some point to bring up additional business at the end of the meeting, so that if he wishes to make a motion, then that would be the time in which he would make it. And then there would have to be a second, and then there would have to be a vote on it.
Okay, all right. Now I'm up to speed.
Okay.
Commissioner's report?
Yes.
Is that it? Okay.
Yes.
Since Election Day, I found myself as commissioner-elect out in the community, smiling, shaking hands. We were right at the Thanksgiving season, so there were with organizations collaborating with the Fuse Group. They gave actually 2,000 Thanksgiving baskets out to our district. So I had a privilege of going out to be a part of that. Also, along with the FOP and also the Black Police Association, we also handed out baskets to families in District 3. Our mayor was there, and he was able to introduce me as the commissioner-elect. So that was very exciting for me. And also, I had the opportunity on this past Friday to be a part of Light Up 6 Trunk. And Commissioner Glassman was there with us. And I was really excited for the opportunity, but I have to tell you that the community is not pleased with the outcome of the event. And it was shared if there was budget cuts that required for the event to be scaled back tremendously, and the community is not happy about it. So as Commissioner-elect, I've been getting those dialogues and those conversations, just completely disappointed. They felt that it was disrespectful. So I'm sharing that because that is something that I have been, has been talked to. Someone's called me, some citizens have called me, and they want to know what we're going to do, not even for our district, but for the city overall, because it's our understanding that the light up events over the city were scaled back tremendously. So for future discussion, so we can address that. First time report, I'll be better prepared the next time, but I did want to share with you, even before I was able to take my oath, my constituents were asking me to come and be a part of the things that were going on in their district, in the area. Also, I forgot, at the YMCA, the Mosaic group, we did the ribbon cutting for them. They opened a new workspace in the YMCA, and I was invited to be a part of it. So that's it in a little nutshell, but we look forward to sharing what we'll be doing in the future. Thank you for the time.
You're very welcome. Commissioner Glassman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And also, as I said earlier this morning, congratulations and welcome to the dais. Commissioner Sturman, Commissioner Beasley-Pittman, and Commissioner Herbst. As I said, we have a lot of work to do, and I look forward to it. Commission reports for District 2. The mayor and I, on the 16th of November, had an excellent tour of War Memorial. And thank you to staff. There's an excellent video that we did circulate in our District 2 emails. And that was a really great day, and we look forward to that opening of War Memorial and the ice rinks in Holiday Park. From there, I did attend a Central Beach Alliance meeting, always a great group, always a great turnout and excellent agenda as well. On Friday, November 18th, I had the pleasure of addressing the Beach Council from the Greater Fort Lauderdale Chamber of Commerce, a great bunch of folks on the beach, businesses that work so hard and have had a couple of really rough years, but they're coming back nicely. On Saturday, November 19th, I had the privilege of attending the 7th annual Turkey and Grocery Giveaway at Sanctuary Church on Federal Highway. You know, at our last meeting that was canceled in the evening, we were supposed to do a proclamation to all of the folks that were involved in this great endeavor. Again, I wanted to say to those folks, thank you so much. We didn't get a chance to do that proclamation. That's an amazing event. For those of you that don't know, cars start lining up on Federal Highway and heading south along Federal Highway and around Sunrise Boulevard, almost all the way to the Galleria. And they do that like at 4 a.m. in the morning. And the woman that was the first car in line, Whole Foods gave her a really nice extra cake. But it is amazing the need out there. And I see several people that are in the audience, Paul and Bill, that have helped in the past on this. Thank you. It's an amazing array of volunteers that help. You know, we live in a city that's considered pretty well off, and we forget sometimes that there are folks that are really in need of a meal, that they are really food challenged. And that's why I always enjoy being a part of that project every single year. So everyone that's involved with that, Sanctuary Church, Michael Albetta, the property appraiser Marty Care's office, Ray Rapaglia, and his group, James Club. There are so many more that I could name, but it's an amazing event, and I so look forward to that every single year. On Tuesday, November 22nd, we did have Light Up the Beach at the Los Olos Oceanside Park, packed, thousands of people. And Commissioner Beasley-Pittman, to your remarks, I did have a few people said, where are the fireworks this year? So just don't feel alone in having some of those phone calls. But I did get asked, where are the fireworks this year? And I said, well, there are some budget cutbacks and there are some different pricings going along on some of the events. The mayor, thank you for showing up. Commissioner Sturman, I'm sorry to keep you awake, but thank you also for showing up as well. Nice yawn. It was great having you there as well. Obviously, we all had a wonderful holiday, and Tuesday, November 29th, we did have the 21st annual Light Up Downtown. That's the Styles Group over at the YOLO Plaza. That was an amazing event. And then I was very pleased to just run over to the 60th annual Christmas on Los Olas, and the merchants there do an amazing job every year. Just tons of entertainment, so many school groups, so many kids. It was really, really a pleasure to be there as well. Wednesday, November 30th, Middle River Terrace Neighborhood Association meeting, always very engaging. Thursday, December 1st, we had the Riviera Isles Homeowners Association. Actually, they're called the Improvement Association, meet right here in Chambers. They hadn't met in a while because of COVID, so it was really nice to be a part of that meeting. And Dr. Ruddy does a great job with Riviera Isles Improvement Association. I then ran over to the Lake Ridge Civic Association's annual holiday party called the Taste of Italy that they have every year at Cafe Vico. Very well attended. The property appraiser, Marty Kerr, was there as well that evening. And as Commissioner Beasley Pittman said, Light Up Sistrunk was on Friday, December 2nd. Upcoming, we have the Central Beach Alliance Holiday Party. That's tomorrow, December 7th. This Saturday, of course, we have the Winterfest Boat Parade, an incredible event in our city. Tuesday, I'll be happy to join the FOP at the Christmas party at Tap 42. Wednesday, December 14th, the Dolphin Democrats Holiday Party at the UNCS in Wilton Manors. I would remind everyone that Sunday, December 18th, we do have the first night of Hanukkah, and there are menorah lightings everywhere. The rabbis are grabbing me every which way I look, and I'm going to all of these menorah lightings on that day. I hopefully will make all 3 of them. And then on Tuesday, December 20th, we have Santa on the beach. Just a couple of comments for city manager and city attorney and staff. I have had some concern expressed, mostly in Flagler Village, about the public participation process. I know that for level 3 and level 4, we do that as a requirement. I'm very familiar with that because of the fact that in the Central Beach Alliance years ago, when I had the honor of serving as the president, we did work really hard to get public participation for the neighborhoods with projects. But there is some concern that some of the level 2 projects are not getting public participation. So Mayor, I would love if staff could maybe look at that issue and think about maybe having public participation requirements for all level projects, not just 3 and 4. Also, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the work across the street at Stranahan Park, but Joanne Smith has done an absolutely incredible job over the years in landscaping and making that an amazing place for the Women's Club. She has been tireless in her advocacy for that site. Joanne has been going through, as most people know, some serious health challenges. I've been asked if perhaps that we could install a small sign within Stranahan Park naming the gardens as the Joanne Smith Botanical Gardens to recognize her and her continuing work. I think that would go a long way in lifting her spirits. Hopefully everyone can agree to something along those lines, and maybe if staff could work on that, that would be great. Next item for concern and discussion, recently we had the Odyssey weekend on the beach. There are many folks that live in and around the beach that feel that maybe the city needs to look at the fee structure and the payments that are made when we let these private concerts take over the beach area for so many weeks for setup, for the actual event, and then for breakdown. I'd like to see some sort of comparison to what happens in Miami with Ultra, also up north in Sunfest. Are we getting the kinds of monies that we should be for giving up our precious beach for so long? I'd like us to look at that with regards to Odyssey and also Tortuga and other events on the beach.
So what was the deal with that? I saw the complaints that were made regarding the setup. Were they taking, was it more than a week for the setup? What was going on there? Do you know the details?
There's always, actually things like this have moved much quicker, and my office did not get a lot of complaints for this past weekend, but people are always concerned with just the amount of time that it takes to set up and how much time that part of the beach is sort of off limits and difficult to access. So if maybe we could look at that, but I think also importantly is, the amount of money that is made on these concerts, on these weekend events, is really quite significant. Is the city getting its fair share? I know that they pay for services like police and fire and other services that are costs of those events, but are we getting above and beyond that, like other municipalities do?
Aren't we getting part of the ticket price?
I don't believe so. And
No.
we're doing a report to gather that for you and share with you all. Brings an opportunity to see how we can leverage the frequency of these events and also the participation of these events to see how they can improve our finances as well.
Okay.
Yes, no, and I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. Last but not least, I have over the last year and a half or so requested that we get our Charter Review Board back in gear. There's got to be so many items that we can address, that we need to address. Today's discussion is indicative of exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know the last time that they met, but I really do believe that we can take what we just experienced this last month and make it a learning experience. I think there are instances in our charter where the language is ambiguous. There's a gray area. I think that we should make sure that there are no gray areas. I think that we make sure that the charter is not fighting with itself, that the charter is not fighting with any state statutes, and that we don't run into issues where we're all of a sudden saying, that's sort of not really clear. I think we need to make sure that it is clear. I have had folks recommend to me that we look at other cities. I know that in other cities, such as Boca Raton, you cannot have homestead in another city and be a candidate for election. I know that they look at time that you must be a resident, not just from the election back, but also from when you qualify back. I just would like us to explore some of what other cities do. And that's just one, because I know that we've had a whole list of other issues that I think the Charter Review Board needs to look at. But again, I just think it's time that we made sure that our charter is clear on just about every topic that you can imagine, and then that it's meeting our needs. That's about it for me, the mayor. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor, could I just say that I agree with Commissioner Glassman? I think you're absolutely right that it is not a model of clarity. I think there are a lot of areas where we've got some conflicting language, as you say, between the charter and the state. And there are areas within the charter that don't necessarily agree with themselves. So I think this is a great opportunity. I fully endorse that. I've got somebody that I would like to put on it if we do go down that route. And I think it would be a great idea if we could do that so that we're ready to have something as quickly as possible before the next election.
And Mayor, I apologize. I had one other item that was on a separate piece of paper. I think that we need to also have an update on where we are with the tunnel from the beach to downtown. It's been a while since we've heard any information.
It's been a while. I think it was January they were supposed to get back to us.
Yes, but we can get you an update at the next commission meeting.
Have we also have any kind of accounting? I know that we allocated $375,000, I believe, for all of the testing, all of the vetting.
The engineering.
Do we have any idea of how much of that amount of money we've actually expended?
So we received the first invoice of many, and I believe it's $50,000, the first invoice, Anthony? Yeah, so that's the first milestone. So there's still a balance of funding available. And the contract read that as efforts were achieved, milestone payments would be invoiced, and we just have the first invoice so far.
Well, I would like to actually revisit that. I think that it's important. We've only spent the 50 of the 375. I think we have a new commission now. I think that we should schedule a discussion. I'm thinking that it might even be time to pull the plug on this, save that other $325,000, and just figure out exactly where we want to go from here.
I'll second that.
Well, the problem, okay.
Not a motion. We can't make a motion now.
The problem. Well, I think the whole project just seemed to go a little sideways, and I think that a lot of the things that the head of that company have been doing nationally has sort of put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths as to who we're doing business with. So, I think that we should have a discussion regarding that. I don't know what our contractual obligations are, whether you can pull the plug like that.
Well, we need to find that out.
So if we can just have an update at the next meeting, that would be very helpful.
We will.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it for me, Mayor. Thank you.
Sure?
Well, let me check my notes. I might have a loose piece of paper somewhere else.
Okay.
Sorry.
Commissioner
I'm good.
Sturman, you're interfering with Commissioner Sturman's time.
collateral damage from this, oh my goodness. The bad thing when I was running for office, and I'm the last name on the ballot, obviously, everything I want to say has been said already, a couple of my big ticket items here, but I'm going to reiterate a couple of very quick things. First of all, I'd like us to clarify what we did with the PDD. We decided to sort of go by the wayside, but I want to put a nail in that coffin. I just want to say that we definitely are not going to pursue the change in height on the PDD. I want to come out with a consensus. Is that clear? I mean,
I think we did already. PDD, the go to 500 feet.
We sort of said, hey, we're not going to direct staff to blah, blah, blah. I think we just want to be a little stronger statement that we're going to not to totally abandon that idea. Is that the consensus that we have?
I thought we did as a commission a couple of meetings ago, pretty much put the kibosh on that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so
We did.
put an end to that. I mean, some of the people were saying, is it done? I go, yeah, it's done.
No.
Number two, Steve, Commissioner Glassman just alluded to the question I was going to ask our city manager about the 375 for the tunnel. In addition to the money, I think you had mentioned, we had spoken earlier, like a day or two ago, about 50,000. Any other fees, legal fees, consulting fees, anything else that's ongoing expenses, if we could just put a hold to all of it. Do you have any feel for what we spent?
So we're going to get you that update at the next city commission meeting and certainly review the contract and see what are the terms and conditions for disengaging.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for checking that out for me. I think that we need to get off of that. Number three, there's 6 things I need to talk about. I did the first 2. Now, it's a little harder. I want to set the tone going forward for a couple of things. And I want to start by saying, Steve, you and I are friends. We've known each other for years. Dean, we are friends. I know and respect you. Pam, you're new to me, but I'm a friend with you already. And John, we've been going back for an awful long time. We're going to disagree. We're not going to agree with everything. I want to stay friends. I want to respect everything that you do. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is you're going to disagree with one of the things I'm going to come up here with. But everybody here, I think, has the interest of the city at heart. Everybody is very intelligent. You all do your homework. I think we all have the same goal, maybe different ways of getting about it. But I want the tone to be that, no, remain friends and have the same visit. We could disagree. If I do disrespect you, I apologize in advance. But I do not want to disrespect anybody, and I do respect everybody, all the work you've done, and all your vision for the city. Okay. Going forward, here goes now. I think we do have to apologize for the citizens and the residents in District 1. I was voted to represent District 4, but I'm here to serve the entire city, including District 1. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not having blame. Please don't take anything I say personally. I'm not just shooting bullets at everybody. But we had an election. There was ample opportunity to question the qualifications. In fact, it's called a qualifying period. Even during the election, during the campaigning, there was ample time. The options were, number 1, question the qualifications, or 2, put it out to the voters. Obviously, it was put to the voters. They choose option number 2. And I even got a mailer about your homesteading. I don't even live in your district. After the fact you were elected, I guess it went back and forth. Oh, we'll go back to option 1. Again, I'm not saying who's at fault, but the message that we gave to the citizens in District 1 is wrong. And it's saying that we don't respect them. And I want to apologize. One of us has to apologize, and if not, it will be me. I want to apologize to the citizens in District 1, as well as Mr. Herbst. I'm thrilled to have you sitting beside us, every one of you. Next thing is what Steve said. I think we need to reinstitute and recall the Charter Review Board. I think we have to, as quickly as we can, fix those gaps. I'd like to appoint somebody to the Charter Review Board if I have the option. And the last thing, I'm going to suggest to Greg, I'd like to add an agenda item for next week. It might not be pertinent, but if it is pertinent, I do want to have add an agenda item to the June 20th meeting that we could do a performance review for the city attorney, if we can. And that's all. Thank you guys very much, okay?
Okay. We can do another one because we just did one for him.
In October, I know, but an update since October, yes.
Okay.
Well, I'm here, thank you.
Okay, does that complete your comments?
That completes my comments.
Okay. So, obviously, we're off to a little bit of a rough start, and hopefully, going forward, we'll be able to continue to work together and look, obviously, we're all out here for the best interests of our city. And the way to secure the best interests of our city is to find common ground and to try to work towards an agreeable solution in which we can get as much consensus as possible on the issues before us. I thought an example of that was the water treatment plant. It's a very important and intelligent dialogue that took place there, and I want to thank each member of the commission for the questions that they asked. But that's just an example of how we can work together and to make things happen. I'm disappointed that there's an interest in terminating the leadership of some of our charter officers, because I believe that that the contradictions within our charter and the inability to define things that that do not have definition in the charter made it very difficult to try to make decisions as we were looking to navigate through this election process. I have to say that I think Mr. Boileau, every time he was asked a question, always responded in every way he could in favor of Mr. Herbst. You may not have been privy to those conversations, but I'm just going to reveal to you that every time a subject came up where Mr. Herbst's status was at issue, Mr. Boileau always responded in favor of Mr. Herbst. So going forward, we'll see how things go, but I think it would be a big mistake to make any changes in leadership. Let me talk a little bit about the things that I've done the last few weeks. Yes, Commissioner Glassman and I did a review of the status of the War Memorial and the adjacent ice skating rinks that are almost complete. I believe next spring we'll see the completion of them. They're an amazing, amazing infrastructure that's been added to our community. People from all over the area are going to be able to benefit from this. The investment that the team made, I want to thank Mr. Viola for the investment that his organization made in our community. It's just astounding that someone would reach into their pocket and to create this recreational facility for our community. It's just absolutely amazing. I'm totally looking forward to it. In addition, the refurbishment of the War Memorial building itself, they have completely gutted the building, spending millions and millions of dollars to create a facility that this city has long been proud of, and will continue with the operation of that facility. Just to give everyone a little bit of a heads up, the War Memorial was costing the city almost $1 million a year to keep up, not including the investment in infrastructure, and this saves the city tremendous amount of money going forward. So we're very excited about this opportunity. I also mentioned earlier that I attended the League of Cities conference in Kansas City. This is the National League of Cities. It was an opportunity for me to connect with other community leaders throughout the country. I sat on a panel to discuss how to deal with violent crime in our communities and measures and best practices that we have taken. It was really a great opportunity to listen to other city mayors to see what practices that they're undertaking. I have to say that we're pretty much in the good there. I think a lot of people looked up to some of the things that we do, and I want to thank our police chief and everyone in our public safety departments for the work that they do, and we should be very proud for the kind of results that we achieve. I had lunch yesterday with the state attorney, and I asked him, how's our crime rates doing, and he indicated that they're the lowest in decades. So we're very proud of a community that watches over us and that protects us, and I think our police department is definitely the most important reason why that happens. I attended a number of social events, Rural Dames Cancer Ball, Light Up the Beach, but very importantly, last week I attended a world conference on anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism and all forms of bigotry are increasing throughout our communities, including Fort Lauderdale. And it was a great opportunity for me to learn best practices of how other cities and other communities are dealing with violence and criminal activity towards groups such as the Jewish community, as well as people of color, the LGBT community. All these issues came up at the Anti-Semitism conference. And at some point, I'd like to be able to have that opportunity to share some of the details with the rest of my members of the commission and how we can move forward in trying to push back the forces of hate in our communities. I also attended the Winterfest Ball with Commissioner Beasley Pittman and her husband, and Warren Sturman and his brother. It was a brother and sister-in-law, right?
Not quite. No,
Oh,
don't start
yeah.
that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, family members.
You're getting him in trouble now.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, we attended the event. It was a great event. The entertainment was amazing, and I really my hat goes out to Lisa Scott Founds for her ability to really build that event to where it is today. I remember years ago I would attend the same event and there'd be maybe 350 people attending, and she said that last Saturday over 1,200 people were in attendance. So it's amazing. Great fundraiser, great way to bring community people together. And this Saturday is the actual boat parade, and we encourage everyone to attend. Yours truly will be a judge once again, and it's just a great, free, fun, family-oriented event for everyone in the community to enjoy.
And happy birthday today to Lisa Scott Founds.
It is her birthday.
Yes, today is her birthday.
Happy birthday, Lisa.
Happy birthday.
So tomorrow, I think you mentioned the Central Beach Alliance is having their holiday party at Cafe Del Mar. I'll be in attendance there. There will be a Broward Climate Summit at Museum of Discovery and Science that same evening. The following evening, Florida League of Cities is having its holiday party at the Cambria Hotel on the beach. And then Friday night is the Grand Marshal reception at the Hard Rock Casino. Anyone who's interested in participating, please let me know. It's basically open to sponsors, but members of the commission can certainly be there. And then Dr. Elizabeth King is having her annual toy drive at the Hilton, Fort Lauderdale Hilton on December 12th. I also want to mention a couple of other things on I think it's the 18th. Commissioner Glassman, I believe you referenced there's the Grand Hanukkah celebration at 4:30 at the Las Olas Chabad Center, and then there's the city's menorah lighting at the Las Olas Oceanside Park later that evening.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
That's a city event, yes. But the downtown Chabad has their Hanukkah festival in the Las Olas Oceanside Park from noon till the lighting.
Okay. And then that same evening, the Nurmi Isles Association is having their holiday party at 6:30. I'll be in attendance there as well. Will you be there?
Yes, I will.
Okay, we'll see you there. So a lot of fun, interesting, exciting things happening in our city, and look forward to participating in these holiday events. And one thing I can say, being so proud of the mayor of the city, that we are a community that really shares in their abundance and shares in their and the feeling of goodwill that this holiday season brings about. And I have to tell you that everywhere I go, people are so proud of being part of Fort Lauderdale. So with that said, Mr. Boileau, do you have a city attorney report?
I do have one issue that I brought up with you, some of you individually. If you recall back a few months ago, we had a project come before you called 500 Hendricks. I think the project had another name,
Right.
which escapes me. The Planning and Zoning Board had previously approved the project, and upon call-up had come to you for reconsideration or for review. The City Commission voted to deny that project, which the developer proceeded to court and filed a petition for writ of certiorari as well as a writ of mandamus. The court ruled in favor of the developer recently, I believe last week, and granted the petition, which basically nullifies the city commission's resolution denying.
So that means they can
the,
go ahead and build their building.
Correct. Well, we anticipate the court will issue a follow-up order on mandamus, basically requiring the city to proceed forward with the decision of the Planning and Zoning Board. The reason I bring this up to you is we do have what we just went through is called first-tier certiorari or first-tier review. We do have an opportunity technically to seek what's called a second-tier review, which would be the 4th District Court of Appeal. Now, that being said, that is a very, very narrow review. The court looks at only two things. It looks at whether the circuit court provided due process, procedural due process, which in this case it did, and whether it followed competent substantial, if it followed the essential requirements of the law. And it's not a matter of even the court is relegated to basically in looking at those two things, but it's not just a mere legal error. In order to be a departure from a clearly established principle of law, the error has to be so serious that it results in a miscarriage of justice. And in fact, ordinary legal errors or application of the correct law incorrectly under the facts are not sufficient. It's a very high burden. So I don't necessarily recommend we go through the exercise, but I need guidance from you if you want to go ahead and try the second-tier review and take it to the 4th DCA and see what they make.
So they appealed it to the circuit court, correct?
Correct.
And so if we wanted to take it to the next level, it would be a decision by this commission whether or not we are giving you the authority to do that.
Correct. And again, it's not a second appeal. It's really, again, that narrow, very narrow, the court will not look at the facts.
Right.
The court will only look at procedural due process, which here there's no question. And then we'll look at the issue of whether the essential requirements of the law have been followed, if by the court, not by you, but by the court. So if that's, and it's very rare that you're going to get relief on second tier. So, we're obviously going to expend money to do this. So it's just a consideration for you to have and to give us guidance as to whether you want us to proceed with second tier.
Commissioner Herbst, did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Mayor. Alan, quick question. So typically, wouldn't we be discussing this in a closed door if we're discussing legal strategy before we decide how we're going to move forward?
Typically, well, we don't have time because
Okay.
we have to file a petition within a certain amount of time. Actually, as soon as I have direction today, I want to be on the phone with counsel.
Okay.
And since this doesn't involve money, it's just really a matter of guidance on appeal rather than the actual merits. We can bring this forth, without a closed door.
So we're not discussing a strategy. We're only discussing whether to move forward or not.
On an appeal, basically. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
Was this the thing with 30-foot setback, 180 days, the timer? Is that the issue?
That's correct.
Okay.
So,
And this is really, I'm sorry.
So go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the facts are very unique to this case. So since this has occurred, obviously, this was the first time the law that issue was passed, I believe, in 19, right before COVID. And this was in a one-off, really. We have, with staff, worked to make sure that the 180 days is adhered to. Even one of the unique issues here is that the city of Fort Lauderdale is one of the very few cities in Florida that has this call-up provision following a planning and zoning decision.
Mm-hmm.
So it's rare on the facts in that regard. Furthermore, we've put protections in place now that if a developer comes in, either there's a delay on their side or there's something they're not providing, they have two options. They can waive the 180 days, or we go back and start from square one so we don't get into this situation again, where we actually do not render a decision, a final decision, which would include a city commission review within the 180 days.
So we have to decide this tonight?
Yeah, we would, right. If you can just give me guidance on that, then we can proceed, because unlike a normal appeal or direct appeal, in a direct appeal, you just file a notice of appeal. It takes 2 seconds. Here, we actually have to draft the petition for writ of certiorari to be filed within a certain amount of time. It's not just one page.
Wasn't this appeal won because of procedural due process? In other words, the appellant claimed that the time period had lapsed, and then we made a decision afterwards, and therefore we were not eligible to overturn the Planning and Zoning Board's decision. Isn't that kind of how it worked out?
It was more of the issue was the essential requirements of the law, that we didn't follow Florida law.
But it had to do with the time frame within which.
The 180 days, which is mandated by Florida law, that the municipality or the governmental entity has to make a decision or render a decision within 180 days, which it had for the planning and zoning, at the planning and zoning level, which is the normal approval they would get in any event. So we were fine there. What brought us into outside of the timeline was the call-up by the city commission, which reversed the decision.
Okay.
But Mayor, I think, and again, this is a project in my district, and I've been following this for quite a long time. And I do believe that we should appeal. I think that we need to just take it to its logical conclusion. I understand the 180-day timeline, but again, as the city attorney said, we have a call-up provision. I think all of this needs to be explained because, I don't think that the entire application is complete when there's still so many outstanding questions and comments from DRC. I just think it's worth going that next step and really arguing this case aside from that 180 days, but also explaining why the 180 days, it's not really part of or germane to what this case has been about. Again, we did that with planning and zoning, but then there was the call-up provision, and there was still, even when it went to planning and zoning by that time, again, lots of comments and questions. I think it's a two-way street between the city and the staff and then also the developer. Both sides have to be working in concert and not just delaying, or else every developer could just simply push it past 180 days and then say, hey, I have to have my approvals now because you're past 180 days. I just think it's worth having that extra step taken. And this way we know for sure what that ruling would be. Is there a slim chance, as the city attorney is saying, that we'd be successful? Perhaps, but I'm not convinced that we don't have any chance. And I just think that it's worth us not dropping this right now. I think that we have to do the appeal.
And the question, I think almost the whole 180 days was chewed up through the process, going through P&Z. By the time it came out of P&Z, it was like, it was at the edge of their time frame. Is that what it was?
In this particular case, part of the issue was, certainly it was driven by some of the time that the developer took, but, and this sounds horrible, but we were sort of complicit. I hate to use that word, but we allowed that to happen. So it's a little hard to go back on them, and it wasn't a knowledgeable waiver under the law that would say, well, you waived it. So that's some of the nuances and the issues that make the issue more complicated. But certainly, if it's the will to do that, the only drawback to that is the cost in doing it, but there's really no severe repercussions if we take the next step.
Well, I agree with Commissioner Glassman's assessment.
Well, except that Commissioner Glassman, keep in mind that this appeal to the fourth DCA is not going to review what we did as a city, but what the circuit court did. In other words, they're going to look to see if the circuit court
I understand.
made a procedural error. And so it kind of removes us and the whole issue, one step away from the points that you both are making. So that's why I'm concerned whether it's a futile effort to question whether the circuit court departed from the essential requirements of law.
Well, I don't think we have anything to lose because we'll be in the same position or even a better position if the fourth DCA does overturn. I mean, I don't see what we really...
Well, it's going to cost about $30,000-$40,000. That's what the difference is. So keep that in mind.
I understand, but I still believe that because of the issues there with this site plan, I just think that we as a city need to just carry this through and do the appeal. Have we spent $30,000 or $40,000 in places in the city where it wasn't really money well spent? Yes, I think I can think of a few instances. So I would certainly rather that we just follow through because of the issues involved in this, because of the development issues, because of the neighborhood issues, because of all of the issues that are on the record. I think the case just needs to be argued on appeal. Again, we will not be in any worse position if we lose, but we have a chance of being in a better position.
Okay.
That's all.
So do you want to bring that up to Would he bring, do you need
I
direction
just
now?
need,
How do
I
you
just
want to
need
do that?
consensus from you. I just need direction. So if three of you agree, then we're good.
All right, is there a consensus to have the city go forward on the writ of certiorari?
Yeah, I feel so, yes, yes.
There is? Okay.
Okay, I agree.
You good with that? Okay. All right,
So
so
we'll
we'll go
proceed
ahead with
forward.
it. All right.
So Mayor, just in the interest of echoing Commissioner Glassman's earlier comments about working together collegially, I think I would absolutely defer to the district commissioner on this one.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Herbst.
Thank you, John.
Partnership and collaboration.
I'm telling you, I'm keeping score. That's one. Let me, I got my pad here. Okay.
Commissioner
Good.
Glassman. Okay.
Look, man, here it is. I got the little mark right here. That's one. Thank you. Excellent.
Mr. Wallow, do you have anything further?
I do not, Mayor. Thank you.
Greg, do you have anything you would like to report today?
I do. So I'd like to use my my city manager report time to address some of the concerns that were presented by Commissioner Herbst. As administration staff, we remain neutral in all matters and follow policy and charter strictly. I also, myself, as a professional, second-time city manager, follow the ethical standards as outlined by the International City Counter Managers Association. There was never any malicious intent to hold back the swearing-in ceremony. In fact, staff was enthusiastic and with positive spirit. They prepared the ceremony not only once but twice to welcome the new elected officials. Commissioner Herbst, upon your declared winning of the election, uncertified, that same evening, I congratulated you via text. The very next day, I directed staff to furnish you with an email account, access your PC, and I also met with you the very next day, and I fulfilled your request to move your district office from the 8th floor to the 7th floor promptly and immediately. I followed every detail until a challenge was placed. I did everything in my power administratively to fulfill your request. Once that challenge took place, the complex nature of the challenge that was presented required me to rely on the legal advice of my colleague, Mr. Boileau. I agree, just as you, that the charter is complex and somewhat limited in the circumstances that we experience, but that is what we follow. The situation was a unique circumstance in the history of the city of Fort Lauderdale. Never has the charter been tested to this degree. We follow process and what the charter outlines. The challenge needed to be heard, and I needed specific individuals to convene to hear the challenge. I cannot force or require anyone, and unless they are available, I cannot make a meeting happen. Had I listened to the direction and requests of the commissioner, I would have disregarded the advice of the city attorney, the availability of the commissioners, and the challenge and the charter. Logistically, the individuals that were needed for the hearing and to receive the newly elected officials were not available until today. I agree that the past 3 weeks were characterized by first ever circumstances from limitations of the charter. I rather follow the charter to the best of my ability. And if I'm removed from my position for following charter and based on a group of opinions from a group of attorneys, I'd rather be removed for that than to be removed for basing my actions on one opinion. Commissioner Herbst has mentioned again that there are conflicting challenges within the charter, and this gives us an opportunity to reflect on how we may improve outcomes in the future by having an improved charter that may outline situations uniquely as this one. Merriam-Webster's definition of government is the body of persons that constitute the governing authority of an organization. The word plural connotes that I'm unable to make unilateral decisions or just of one opinion. So our position is to consider all sides and have consensus on the individuals that are in government and upon an interpretation of policy and law. I hope that the commission can look at the potentials that are before us, that have a wonderful future, have a bright future before us. And I look forward to having the opportunity to work with each and every one of you. I look forward to supporting the vision, the policy, and the charter of the City Commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Do you have any additional comments? All right.
Mayor, if I could just, since Mr. Chaviera brought that up, I wanted to clarify one issue.
Sure.
Because a lot of statements have been made about the violation of the charter. Statutory construction is not easy, especially as Mr. Chaviera stated, this was an unprecedented time in the city of Fort Lauderdale in its history. The commissioner focuses on section 3.10 as his counsel did. And I heard this argument before, and I heard it throughout the last few weeks. And as you pointed out to Mayor, we've responded to each communication we've received. You have to read the charter and call what's called peri materia. You have to look, you can't just look at one section. You have to look at the others. 3.04 becomes critical because yes, 3.10 is very critical when it comes to special elections. Although with the special act that we're under as well, where canvassing is done by the SOE is actually supposed to get us certifications for the election within 5 days, which didn't occur. That's under the special act, but again, we have no control over that. Under section 304, once that challenge is filed, we do not, and my office does not, I answer to the Florida Bar and I answer to the Florida Supreme Court. I cannot tip the scales for anyone, whether it be a politician or whether it be a former candidate, whatever it is, we remain absolutely neutral. Under section 3.04, there is a process. Absolutely, I think we all agree, the charter is incredibly inartful and we've never had these provisions challenged before. But what we did is we did not violate the charter. We actually followed it to the letter. It displeased many. I was getting shots from both sides. It was very difficult to navigate these waters in the last 2 weeks. And I'm not trying to gain sympathy, but everybody had an opinion. Absolutely everyone. And at the end of the day, it comes down to looking at the entire charter and making the best decision possible with what is provided. I didn't write the charter, you didn't write the charter, but it's the charter we have to live with. And under section 3.04, there is a very specific process that's in place. And as information changed, we went ahead and changed our opinion as well because that information was incoming. We do not have the authority, Mr. Chaviera and I, to challenge the veracity of that affidavit. Once an affiant brings in an affidavit, it rests on its merits. With qualifications, Commissioner Sturman, you raised before with regards to the qualification period, the city clerk's role is and always has been ministerial. He has no authority to challenge what a candidate puts on those forms. He checks to make sure it's accurate in the sense that, okay, the address is in the city, this address is here, it actually exists, so on and so forth. Very ministerial. The supervisor of election is the same way. They do not vet the qualifications of candidates. So the only recourse is either under our charter, under 3.04, or under state law, which I believe is section 102, something or other. There's two avenues in order to do that. One is, again, state law, 10 days after certification, and then our charter. And our charter has a lot of problems, no doubt, but that's what we're stuck with. So there was absolutely no violation of the charter, no intentional violation of the charter. The Commissioners' Council disagrees, and attorneys disagree all day long. But we've had, it wasn't just me. I have my team of attorneys. I had outside counsel. We all looked at this and came to the same conclusion. And again, if I'm going to be faulted for doing that, then I rest here very peacefully because that's my job. Like I said, I answer to the Florida Bar and I answer to the Florida Supreme Court, and that's paramount to me. To suggest that somehow I unethically tip the scales in any way, shape, or form is professionally insulting. I love serving you as your city attorney and for the last 4.5 years and want to continue to do so and work together because we've accomplished quite a great deal and we have a lot on the plate that we have to do. But I certainly, if you have concerns, I want to address those with you individually so we can make sure that we're on the same path, including Commissioner Herbst. Before the meeting, I approached him and said, we need to meet. I want to know what your expectations are, as I did with each of you in the prior commission and hoping to do with the rest of the new commissioners. So in that regard, obviously, you're within your rights to do as you will, but I want to make sure that we're clear that this charter is less than clear. And your staff, Mr. Chavarria, myself, the city clerk, everyone we could get on board that had any input, we listened to, we responded and made the best decisions possible. And I think both he and I won't speak with him for him, but both he and I are very comfortable. And if you were to take me back 2 weeks from ago, I would make exactly the same decisions I've made all along and stand by those today.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, may I just respond to that? Just for the record, Alan, I would never and have never accused you of unethical conduct. I have a lot of respect for you. I may have disagreed with you through the years on a variety of opinions, but I would never suggest for 1 second that you were acting unethically. I may disagree with your conclusions, but please understand that. I do not accuse you of anything unethical.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, when you said that they willfully violated the charter, that kind of speaks to someone acting unethically.
Well,
So,
thank you, Mayor, but I don't need clarification of my statements. I appreciate that.
no, but it's the way I understood it. So I'm
Okay,
just trying to see if I
well,
if I
if you're
understand
going to
what
bring
you're
that
saying.
up, then allow me to respond to it. So I am not predicating any of this discussion on the challenge to my residency. What I am speaking to is the obligation to swear in Commissioner Sturman and Commissioner Beasley Pittman at the earliest possible opportunity, which again was that Tuesday, immediately following the certification of the vote by the supervisor of election. I did not once mention my challenge. If you notice it, go back and pay attention to what I said and look at it. I wasn't talking about the challenge to me. I was talking about the obligation to certify the votes that were not in dispute.
Okay. Anything further from the commission? Anything further from staff? There being none, this meeting concludes and we'll return at 6 p.m. Thank you.
What about the CRA? CRA?
Oh, we can do the CRA now if you'd like. Okay.
Bathroom break or no?
I'm sorry? Well, this meeting is concluded. Yeah, we'll take a 5-minute break, 10-minute break. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the December 6th CRA meeting. Would clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Herbst? Commissioner Glassman?
Here.
Commissioner Beasley-Pittman?
Here.
Commissioner Sturman? Chair Trentalis.
Here. Moving on to M1, motion approving minutes for November 1st, 2022.
Move to approve.
Meetings. It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Herbst? Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner Beasley-Pittman?
Here.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes. So M1 is approved. M2, motion appropriating unspent remaining Northwest Progresso Flagler Heights Community Redevelopment Agency estimated fiscal year fund balances. Any questions with regard to this?
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Herbst? Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner Beasley-Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and M2 is approved. On to the resolutions. By the way, no one has signed up to speak on any of these? Okay. R1, this is a resolution approving a forgivable loan increase of $500,000 to Wright Dynasty LLC under the Development Incentive Program. This is regard to 1217 to 1223 Sistrunk Boulevard, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
Introduce. Second.
Take your pick.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Fort Lauderdale Community Redevelopment Agency amending Resolution Number 20-12 approving an increase in funding from $3 million to $3,500,000 under the Development Incentive Program and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner Beasley-Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and R1 is approved.
Mayor, can I just add one thing just for the record? I think that's really important to note on this, is these units that are on here, it doesn't say it in the item, but these are going to be workforce units, the ones that are not affordable, which I think is very important for the neighborhood. And also that there's a 15-year period that these are going to remain at that. So I just want to say thank you to the developer for continuing to provide those opportunities for folks in our community.
Okay, great, thank you. R2, resolution approving the budget amendment, return Central City Community Redevelopment Agency fund balance for reallocation. Is there anyone here to speak on this? There's nobody. Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Second.
It's been
Introduced.
Introduced. Any
Second.
qu-
We
any
don't need a
comments?
second for resolutions, do we?
Sorry?
No.
Okay.
That's important for everyone to know.
Right.
If it's a motion that we need, someone has to make the motion, and then someone seconds it. If it's an ordinance, then someone just introduces the ordinance. If it's a resolution, then someone just introduces the resolution. Took me a while to learn that years ago. So,
I've never had to vote on them before. I've always just listened to them.
okay, so the resolution's been introduced. Please call the roll.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Fort Lauderdale Community Redevelopment Agency approving a budget amendment and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner Beasley-Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and so R2 is now approved. Finally, R3, a resolution authorizing a budget amendment, reappropriate $190,000 for environmental studies. Someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
Anyone have any questions with regard to this item? There being none, please call the roll.
A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Fort Lauderdale Community Redevelopment Agency approving a budget amendment and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Herbst?
Yes.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner Beasley-Pittman?
Yes.
Commissioner Sturman?
Yes.
Chair Trentalis.
Yes, and R3 is approved. Is there any further business of the CRA? There being none, meeting's adjourned.
Thank
See you
you.
at 6.
See you at 6.